Total Sport.
Live from Kingston Park.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Good evening, a very warm welcome to Kingston Park in the northeast of England, the home of the Newcastle Falcons. Tonight's visitors, top of the tree, the Bristol Bears. Newcastle, Dean Gray propping up the table at the bottom of the Premiership with one bonus point so far.
Yeah, top against bottom, Bristol having won all three games. The Falcons last weekend put to the sword against Worcester, who I thought captured the emotion of the occasion just perfectly in what could be their farewell performance. A really disappointing display from the Falcons after two pretty entertaining and competitive games against Harlequins and Leicester, of course, winners of the Premiership the year before and the season before that. So really went off the boil and were blown away. Need a performance tonight, Smithy, definitely.
Right, welcome listeners on BBC 5 Live Sports Extra, as well as BBC Radio Newcastle this evening. And also alongside me, my old coach. You started me off in all of this years ago, Mr. Stafford. You've just had a birthday. I won't tell people how many it is, but you struggled to blow out the candles.
I did indeed. It's just that there was one for every decade. Put it that way.
A big cake. But, you were a Bristolian, so you know Bristol of old, and talking to you earlier, you really rate this Bristol side.
Yes, I do. I spent 4 years working in Bristol and played against them when I was down there for Clifton. This side is starting to regain some of its old form, which is a bit ominous for Falcons. And actually, to be honest, last week I wasn't surprised that Worcester beat Falcons, because last time I was here I watched Worcester beat Falcons at Kingston Park, and they have some talented lads at Worcester. They just don't put it together every single game for 80 minutes. But they deserved the win last week, no doubt. This side have got as much strength on the bench probably as they have on the field. I know Randrandra's not playing. I know Charles Piatow isn't playing, the marquee players, if you like. But still, it's still a big ask for Falcons. If they win this, it'll be against the odds, but it will be a terrific bonus and a great start for them.
Dean, we're down at Worcester last Saturday, and Worcester deserved the win. 39-5 probably doesn't flatter them, to be honest, by the end, but Newcastle were in that game till about 25 minutes from the end of it, then just capitulated. And Newcastle have got to try and draw some comfort from the things that have gone on in the two games before that against Leicester and Quins.
Absolutely, because those first two games of the season, Smithy, they were under the shout of winning. Certainly a squad that was denuded of 22 players for that first game, and I think 19 for the second, performed magnificently and could conceivably have taken both wins away, but didn't. The dip in performance against Worcester with pretty much the same side with one or two additions was alarming in some respects, but Worcester definitely fed off the emotional occasion and capitalised upon that.
Well, Bristol Bears come to Tyneside with Rich Lane at full-back, Luke Morahan and Henry Purdy on the wings. Jack Bates and Piers O'Connor form the centre partnership. AJ McGinty signed from Sale during the summer. Partners Andy Urant at half-back. Jake Woolmore, Will Capon and Kyle Sinclair for the front row. Ed Holmes is alongside Joe Joyce in the second row. Chris Bowies on the blind side of the back row. Jack Keenan captains Bristol Bears from the open side, and Marcus Bradbury from Edinburgh, should I say, in the summer, is at number 8. Newcastle, Tom Penny starts at fullback. Adam Radwan and Matteo Carreras on the wings. Two new boys, Matthias Maroney, Matthias Orlando, new to the season anyway. Maroney makes his debut for Newcastle in the centres. Late change for Newcastle, Brett Connon can't start, so Tian Schoeman comes from the bench to take his place at fly half. Sam Stewart, first start of the season, starts at scrum half. For front row, Adam Brocklebank, George McGuigan, Trevor Davison. Second row, Greg Peterson and John Robinson. And the back row has Will Welch, captain of Newcastle from the blind side. Connor Collett on the open side. Callum Chick is at number 8. The benches, Bristol Bears. Harry Thacker, replacement hooker. Jan Thomas and Max Lee for the props. John Hawkins, Dan Thomas for the forward replacements. And Harry Randall, Callum Sheedy, Sam Bedlow, the back replacements. Newcastle, Charlie Madison, the hooker replacement. Maury Pola, Richard Palfreman are the prop replacements. Sebastian de Chavez, Jimmy Pomaya, the forward replacements. Josh Barton is the scrum half replacement. Peter Lucock and George Toke make up the bench for Newcastle. Luke Pearce, the Happy Whistler. Adam Leal, John Meredith are the assistant referees. Andrew Jackson is the TMO, and Greg Garner is the sighting commissioner. Where's your money, man of Northumberland?
Well, Bristol are top of the table, Newcastle are bottom. Home advantage, Bristol missing some of their stars. Newcastle performance has to be dramatically better than it was last weekend, Smithy. They need a win desperately.
You've already said, Staff, you think it's going to be a Bristol win, but it's going to be an open game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a big ask for Falcons. Let's hope they actually just perform. Even just putting in a great performance, I think, would help them. But I can't see Falcons beating them.
Well, we'll see as the night evolves. Luke Pearce is in the middle, he's ready. Tian Schoeman gets the game started. He's starting debut for Newcastle. He's come from the bench in the last 3 games, but this is the first time he's started in those all-black strip, or that all-black strip, should I say. Newcastle in all-black, kicking from right to left, from south to north in front of us. The bad guys, the good guys in all white, Bristol Bears. And Adam Radwan tries to get hands on that high ball kick from scrum half Andy Uren, but it just bounces into touch off Adam Radwan's hands, and it's going to be a Bristol Bears line out, 5 metres, maybe 7 metres inside the Bristol half, left-hand side of the field. If you know Kingston Park, in front of that east stand where the changing rooms are. Lovely throw down the middle of that line, and that's eventually into the hands of Uren under big pressure. Newcastle second row Sean Robinson involved in stopping the scrum half moving forward. Still have the ball in hand, Bristol. It's down on the ground now, and referee says it isn't on the ground. Referee says that Newcastle managed to get hands around that, and I'm going to turn this on and see if we've actually got a ref mic. I'm not convinced. Well, I can hear something there, so we'll see how the ref mic pans out during the game.
It's just a good job he can't hear you, Smithy, after past performances. That's all I would say.
I know what you mean. That's a dreadful thing to say, and yep, the ref mic is there, and Don back in the studio is going to be telling me to turn it down. I know, so I'll do that straight away.
Actually, Luke Pearce has always been, I think Luke Pearce is among the best of the best, to be quite honest. He's always refereed up here.
There's some odd decisions in the first game against Quins, but he laughed about them, and the TMO put him right, and everything was fine.
He did, yeah, clearly forward, clearly backward, then clearly forward apparently, but he had a smile, and he won't do that again, I'm pretty certain. Yeah,
well, the scrummage has been brought together, and it is Sam Stewart. He's had a pot on his foot for a large part of the last few months, but director of Rugby Bladen Rugby Club now, of course, and they've got a difficult game tomorrow. We'll talk about that at half time. Sam Stewart, first start of the season, feeds the ball in. That scrummage is solid, and Stewart feeds it on to Radwan, looking for work into the hands of Schoeman. It's across to Tom Penny, left footed kick from Penny, but Matteo Carreras running hard into the 22. That's just allowed to bounce. It's Henry Purdy that allows that to bounce into touch. This might be kiss of death, Dean, but in all the play Newcastle have had so far this year, that's the most fluid they've looked, and not only one movement, but they were actually on the front foot, ball through hands in front of the runner, and they actually looked half decent there.
Yeah, and Adam Radwan just asking questions, coming off his wing, but then delivering a really quick pass, and a nice kick by Tom Penny. A metre further back from Tom Penny, a metre or two, that could have been a 50-22, Smithy.
Bowie jumps in the middle of that Bristol line, takes it two-handed, down to Uren, into the big runners. Tackled by Newcastle, that is number 8, Magnus Bradbury, still inside the 22. Peterson puts pressure on Uren, but he gets the right foot to kick away, taken by Carreras. Infield to Tom Penny, out to Adam Radwan, in a midfield situation, looks for space, and he's found space. He's tackled he saw the gap stuffs, and the tackles just came in as he was halfway through it.
Yeah, he needs to be doing that, getting two defenders to come to him, because if he gets through, he's away. If he doesn't, at least he's made space.
Schoeman on to Peterson, who can't bring that ball in, knocked forward by the big American international. Comes back to Sam Stewart, but Luke Pearce was playing advantage. Unfortunate, he should really have brought that in, Dean. That wasn't a hard pass to bring in, was it?
It wasn't. He's a big man, isn't he? He's 6'8", and that pass was just slightly too low. Had to bend at the knees a wee bit, and the ball just going forward. But really fluent from Newcastle so far. You can see they want to hit the wide channels very early, and at the moment they've had the balance of play, haven't they?
They have, and Maroney is out there wearing number 13, drifted across to the right-hand side defensively.
Plus, we saw him down at Leicester, didn't we, a few times? But
It's nice seeing him wear a Falcons shirt, isn't it? That's for sure. Yeah. And we've got Mateus Orlando just outside Schoeman on the left-hand side of Newcastle's defence. The scrummage has been set in midfield. Callum Chick's feet are just going to be about on halfway. Newcastle's number 8. Referee is calling the scrums together. And the Uren bends, and the scrummage goes down. Where's it going down? That's Newcastle maybe a bit fortunate there, because that seemed to go down on Adam Brockmelbank's side, where the pressure was coming from. I'm not sure, but Kyle Sinclair is still on his knees.
I think Adam Brockmelbank lost his mind there, Smithy, and Newcastle were fortunate to not be penalised there.
Well, Luke Pearce has come straight across to this side of the scrum, so Andy Uren's going to feed it in the far side, but referee's attention is on Brockmelbank and Sinclair.
Brockmelbank's got his work cut out tonight, hasn't he?
He has indeed. But young Brantingham, who's come in there, I mean, he's had a baptism of fire in the games that he played, but against Sinclair that might have been one too far.
Well, yeah, playing on consecutive weekends against 3 top quality props would have been a big ask, wouldn't it? International level props.
So Uren again, ball in hand. The set is called by a referee, and that scrum is solid. Newcastle get the free kick. Early engaged by the Bristol Bears. I'm not sure I saw that, to be honest, but Luke Pearce is standing there. Kyle Sinclair's not too sure either, and he just stands staring back at Luke Pearce, and he's not walking away, he's still staring, and it's not going to do you any good, son. You might as well walk back.
Well, he's not going to change his mind, the referees. Let's be brutally honest. This is going up, Smithy, isn't it?
This
is the bomb.
Yep, it's a free kick, so it isn't going to go to touch, and it's in the air, and that is going to come down on Luke Morahan. Morahan calls the mark. That was a good kick, but Carreras was just put off by Piers O'Connor, who got on his running line, did nothing wrong, but Mateo Carreras couldn't get near him, and that free kick from Morahan is taken by Tom Penny just outside his 22, moves it on to Schoeman across to Radwan. Radwan's looking for the space, and he's heading towards that defensive line of Bristol. The space just closes, and if he does that stuff, that's going to get too predictable. He had a whole line of players there, and he chose to try and get through two of them, but three closed on immediately.
Yeah, he is. But the minute you get a player like that, it's like Reece Samet. He interests 2 to 3 players every time. You know, sometime if he releases it, there's going to be a space there.
Newcastle clear the short channels on the right hand side of the field. Sean Robinson takes the contact. It's 5 metres from that right hand touchline. Sam Stewart is bringing it back with his right foot. It's in the air, and that's got Radwan trying to put pressure on Henry Purdy, who jumps, and he's smashed back in the tackle. Radwan got there just at the right time. Uren moves it across to McGinty into midfield. That is the back row. Well, it's not the back row, it's the second row. It is Ed Holmes and Newcastle lazy runner coming back, who got a foot on it. Connor Collett, I think it was, who brought it back. He was running back into an onside position. The ball hit his foot, and that is going to be given every day of the week by a referee.
Yeah, I don't think any doubt that was deliberate, Smithy. As soon as he did it, he realised he was in an offside position, and just unfortunate there. It's a reaction thing, isn't it? Couldn't pull away.
You side there, Stuffs.
Yeah, I hope he learns quickly, the lad, because that's a ridiculous penalty to give away.
Well, he's put Newcastle under pressure, and that is AJ McGinty that's taking play up the right-hand touchline. As far as Sale Sharks are concerned, the line-out's been set by a referee. I think that is Adam Leal, that's on this side of the field. 5-man line for Bristol, it's 5 metres outside Newcastle 22. Vui takes it two-handed again, moved into midfield. Piers O'Connor moves it on to McGinty. McGinty just holds the ball a little bit. Newcastle read that. Maroney was up in the face of the Bristol attackers, and that was Kyle Sinclair who knocked that ball on. Wasn't expecting it and couldn't get hands on it. Matthias Carreras just pushes back the big second row. There is Ed Holmes, but Luke Pearce's whistle had gone to indicate it's going to be a scrummage to Newcastle in midfield. Sinclair just got in front of the man, Dean, and that was a bit of a let-off for Newcastle, because if he'd taken that ball, he was at full tilt.
Yeah, two runners running really tight angles close together. A lot of teams win that sort of shape, don't they, to interest players, but I think both players just misread the ball in terms of who it was going to. One good thing to comment on is Adam Radwan's had the ball in the first few minutes of this game, the first 6-7 minutes of this game, 4 times ball in hand.
It's more than he's had it all season, to be
Pretty
honest.
much, to be quite honest, yeah.
And that's what Newcastle fans want to see. That's the big hope, isn't it, Staffs, that you get to international centres that can just free up a little bit of space for the guys out wide, and if Radwan gets some space, he's going to score tries.
Yeah, he absolutely is. He's still one of the fastest lads in the Premiership, without a shadow of a doubt. The other nice thing from Newcastle's point of view is they're first up tackling, they're closing the space, and they are hitting the first tackles, and that's the type of thing that really put Bristol off last time. Yeah. Bristol couldn't get into their high pace, accurate passing. People were just getting in their faces all the time. To keep this up, it could go a little bit better than expected.
Well, Newcastle penalised. Scrubhoff not getting the ball in quick enough as far as Luke Pearce is concerned. Taken quickly by Bristol. They nearly knocked it on, but managed to bring it back in. Kyle Sinclair does knock it on, and the crowd, I don't know what they think of that. And that is the second time that the big tight head prop has took his eye off the ball just before it got there, and he's not happy with life, is he? That first engagement, he wasn't pleased with that, and now he's knocked it on twice. He's not in a good place at the moment.
He does wear his heart on his shoulder, doesn't he? You can tell exactly what mood Carl Sinclair's in just by looking at him. So 3 errors, isn't it, so far by Carl Sinclair? The British and Irish Lions prop, of course, so it's surprising somewhat. I mean, it's terrible weather earlier on today, and the rain has moderated. It's the artificial surface. The ball should be pretty dry, you would have thought, out there.
I was just going to say a little bit earlier when we talked about Sinclair scrummaging, I hope we don't see him too much with ball in hand. If he keeps dropping it, they can give it to him all they want.
All he wants, absolutely. I don't think that's going to happen for very long.
He is one of the best props with ball in hand.
Absolutely.
Got a nice pair of hands.
Sam Stewart is going to feed the scrummage. He'll do it quicker than he did last time because he was penalised, and that's a lovely strike by McGuigan. And the urine is causing problems. Callum Chick moves it back to Tom Penny. Penny, left-footed kick, lovely kick by Tom Penny, end over end. Runs up the left-hand side of the field, runs into touch, and our assistant referee Adam Leal puts his flag in the air. What about 15 metres inside the Bristol half? Tom Penny looks sharp, Dean. He's been out injured at the start of the season, and he came off the bench last week had a bit of a footballer's dive when he got I think he broke an eyelash or something in a tackle when he's up in the air and went down to the ground. Didn't endear him to the Worcester fans.
No.
And, he looks a bit more purposeful tonight.
He does. That's 2 lovely kicks from Tom Penny and a good full back. What's the saying here? Impingement of the line out, I think infringement leaning on, yeah. No, good to see Tom Penny back. He's solid, isn't he? I think he's made that 15 slot pretty much his own.
Newcastle penalised at the line. The ball went free at the front, but Newcastle judged to have been leaning on.
I think it was Callum Chick actually touched his opposition line-out jumper in the air, which is, again, very obvious in modern rugby when you do that, and they penalise it every time.
Well, it is Will Capon, 22-year-old England 20s player, came through the academy at Bristol like so many of these players are, who's got ball in hand. Newcastle's defensive line is on their own 10-metre line. Lovely take, it's down. Will Welch just held back so he couldn't get through onto Uren. Ball has moved quickly. McGinty moves it on. It's Ed Holmes, I think, no, it's not Ed Holmes. Who was that with the scrum cap on? When he turns, I'll get a number. And Uren brings it across to the right-hand side of the field. Into Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan looks for a gap, and he's through a gap. That's poor defence by Newcastle. That's brilliant play by McGinty on the shoulder of Morgan. Can Newcastle stop them? They've stopped them just literally centimetres from that try line, and they just scythed Newcastle apart. In the first time this game, the defence of Newcastle's been strong, but there they were taken apart. Bristol are going to attack the right-hand post on the other line. Luke Pearce says no. Newcastle are defending under the post. The line is under the posts. Bristol just nudging Newcastle back. Bristol again pick and drive up the left-hand side. Uren is burying himself in there. The ball goes wide. It's out into the hands of McGinty. McGinty can't get away. That's a lovely tackle by Maroney, and he dumps McGinty on his back. Radwan involved there as well. Luke Pearce, I didn't see him indicate advantage earlier, Dean, but he's come back for the penalty under the post.
No, he didn't seem to signal it, but I was looking elsewhere. Lovely break, wasn't it? I think Piers O'Connor just a half a show and go, wasn't it? Just threatened to pop that pass off and didn't, and the Falcons' drift defence was so hook, line and sinker there, and Bristol really should have scored from there. Interesting, I think they're going to take the points of the year. I'm a wee bit surprised. That's against the sort of philosophy nowadays in Premiership rugby. Most sides in that position would opt for a scrimmage or a tap and goal. It's right in or just outside the 5-metre line.
Well, they've had the territory lost staffs, haven't they? Maybe they just feel whenever they get in Newcastle's half of the field for a period of time, and what we've now played nearly 30 minutes of the first half, they want to go away with something. Yeah,
it was still quite good defence up to a point. I know we're talking about 3 points here, but to keep Bristol out, when Bristol were at their best, they would have been clinical enough to finish that off. The only thing I was going to say, Smithy, by the way, is Piers O'Connor's much better looking than Piers Morgan.
Piers Morgan, yeah, he is. He is. I'm having one of them days. 6 o'clock start for work this morning. It's obviously taking its toll.
I was going to say he's had a tremendous career change from being on morning television.
I would like to see Piers Morgan play, actually, because that would be worth it for the admission price alone.
Enough already. Enough already. Ian Schoolman gets the game restarted. The ball is in the air, taken by Henry Purdy in his own 22, wide out on the left hand side of that 22. Newcastle's defence comes up as one, and the left wing is taken down. What it'll be, 7 or 8 metres inside his 22. Uren is bringing the ball back with his right foot.
Very close.
Sean Robinson went forward, but the referee said just to get back. No penalties coming for being offside. And what's he given? Not using it quick enough. Well, he penalised Sam Stewart for not getting the ball in the scrummage.
Yep.
And he's now penalised Andy Uren for not using it quick enough at the base of that contact.
Yeah, that's twice he's pinned the scrum up, and it's good to see, because the 5-second directive is still in place, and we often see a scrum half taking 9-10 seconds or more than that to get the ball away, and it's got to be used from a breakdown when available within 5 seconds.
It's just good if they do it consistently through the whole game. That's the problem, isn't it? That's what they've got to do.
That was the big controversy with the French refs' final decision in the Bledisloe Cup, wasn't it? When he reversed a penalty to Australia in the 22, and he gave it as a scrum for New Zealand for Australia trying to run down the clock and time waste. And nobody complained about it because it was quite right. The complaint was more referees need to do it, and they need to be consistent with time wasting.
I think you find the whole Australian side complained about it, Staff, so I'd hate to disagree with that one.
Very quietly afterwards, I'm sure. Scrummage has been set. Sam Stewart feeds that scrummage. It's hit Callum Chick's feet. Stewart bends, moves the ball to Orlando, runs straight at that Bristol Bears defence. The ball's on the floor. It's picked up Newcastle drive towards the line. It's Callum Chick that tries to get there. He's taken down to the ground a metre short of the line, just in front of the right-hand post. Newcastle pick and drive up the right-hand side. Penalties coming for Newcastle. Can they get across that try line? It's a 3-0 game at the moment to Bristol Bears. We played 15 minutes of the first half. Newcastle camped on the Bristol line. Moved up the left-hand side again. Newcastle going to move it left-hand side again. Peterson's the one that's going to pick and drive, and he picks and drives up. Can he get across?
No advantage.
No advantage.
Rebound onto him, so that's illegal. Back to the offside.
Well, you can hear the referee, and he's saying back for the offside. Number three is Kyle Sinclair. Not been his night so far, has it?
No.
He's certainly attracted the interest of our referee in a number of ways.
And nowadays you're not allowed to pre-bind from that situation of the breakdown and the ruck. You can't pre-bind to a player. You've got to leave him free and then pre-bind when he's come away from that ruck situation and it's unbound himself.
Well, I was going to say we're back to old school rugby and they're going to take the points, because I thought the referee indicated that, but he hasn't. He's indicated the scrummage, so he's just thrown the ball back into Sam Stewart's hands, and our referee is trying to get these two packs together. Some treatment on for number 6, Chris Vui. The Bristol number 6, the big back row. 29-year-old, 14 Samoan caps, who came to Bristol in 2017 from Worcester. Takes his place on the blind side of that back row. The two packs are going to be brought together by a referee. You're listening to BBC 5 Live Sports Extra and BBC Radio Newcastle. I'm Ian Smith, alongside me Dean Gray and Ian Stafford. And it's Newcastle Falcons against the Bristol Bears. 3-0 to Bristol at the moment on Tyneside.
Set!
The referee calls the set. The scrummages come together. Callum Chick picks that ball, moves it across to Tian Schoolman, to Carreras. Can he get in the corner? He can get in the corner. Try Newcastle. Lovely pass by Tian Schoolman, straight from the hands of Callum Chick, and that looked, I've got to say the word I can only think of, Staff, classy.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no idea why so many teams go for this pick and trying to get through big forwards when they're close to the line. When they were actually attacking there were 1 metre from the line, one wide out pass, and Carreras could have got that 2 minutes ago, because he was in the same space, and everybody was actually on the floor.
I was going to say, Bristol defended that, Dean, really narrow, didn't they?
They did, actually. I think they thought again Maroney was probably going to hammer it up in midfield and come around the corner like Newcastle have done earlier on in that period of play, or Orlando the same, and Carreras kept his width. We know he's got lightning pace, and Bristol being interesting tonight because the line speed of defence has been really quick, and they were just outthought there a wee bit. I think Carreras kept his width rather, stayed out on the touchline. An easy finish for the young man. Good try by Newcastle.
That threat in the centre, Dean, is something Newcastle haven't had all season.
Yeah, they haven't had the carrying power since Luther Burrell left. Certainly that's the case, Smithy, that you want occasionally a guy to thump it up in midfield. They haven't quite had that.
Schoolman's got the ball on the tee, 2 metres from the left-hand touchline, 2 metres outside the 22. Concentrates, steps forward, strikes that, it's on its way. Will it curl in? Just shaved the left-hand post. It's a 5-3 game. 22 minutes of the first half still to play. Greg Peterson, the American international, is getting some treatment on his forearm there, or his bicep and elbow on his right arm. He's been taped up. That's Newcastle's tape budget for the whole year, I think, used up on the big second row's right arm, but he's running back into position.
Good job it's not his leg, though.
It's going to be AJ McGinty that's going to get the game restarted, and he does. It's in the air, and that's got Robinson underneath it. Can't bring it in cleanly, but it's on Newcastle's side, I think. Newcastle have just about done enough there. Sam Stewart, he's taking his time. He's going to have to get the hurry up. Robinson gets himself back into position to take the ball from his scrum half. They try to hold him up. Ed Holmes, formerly Exeter Chiefs player, 26-year-old, tries to get underneath Robinson, but it's on the floor. And Sam Stewart's bringing it back with his right foot. That's a big high kick that's got Morahan underneath it. A lot of Bristol players between Newcastle chasers and the winger. And he's taken down to ground by Connor Collett, just to the right-hand side of midfield, and that is Will Welsh that manages to get through, and that ball is bounced around. Have Newcastle secured it? They have. Sam Stewart is there, needs runners. He's got McGuigan. McGuigan gives a big dance and a big sidestep and comes back inside. Sam Stewart drops to the floor onto Callum Chick, just bends into the contact, uses the ball to protect his body or bounce the Bristol players away. Stewart is in there, out to McGuigan, back to Tom Penny. Penny looking for a runner. He's found him in Trevor Davison, into the hands of Will Welsh, but offside. You don't want Trevor Davison, do you, in a first receiver position.
No, you generally don't. It was a pretty lousy pass, to be absolutely honest, as well. And there's a yellow card. I think for pulling back, Smithy, I'm not certain.
Right, so Ed Holmes
or
is...
late hit, possibly. Late hit.
Bristol Bears, number 4, Ed Holmes.
Well, Ed Holmes is on the Richard Arnold Memorial sin bin for 10 minutes. I didn't actually see it, so I think it's pulling back, do you?
I think now, actually, it's a late hit, to be honest.
All right, here we go, the big late hit.
High hit as
No,
well.
no hands, just a shoulder into the neck area of
I'll tell you one thing. That
Trevor Davison, I think it is. Was that Trevor? Or was it Tom Penny?
I
He
think
passed
it's
the ball.
Tom Penny after the
gone.
pass.
That's a bit naughty, actually.
Yes.
Actually, it's lower down than I thought it was.
Yeah.
It was a bit lower than I thought it was, but
And the arm was wrapping, Smithy,
yeah,
so I think
so 10 minutes is about right for that, I think. And Schoeman puts his right foot through it, and that's a big kick, and that's put pressure on the Bristol Bears.
And the one player you hate to see down is Tom Penny, isn't it? I mean, he's had his share of knocks over the last few years.
This is actually the type of start that will rattle Bristol.
Yeah.
This is what happened to them last season when they had a bad season. When people got in their face, knocked them over, the whole intensity of their game, the accuracy of their game, just left them.
Well, this will give
They just
Newcastle
lost
massive confidence,
Yeah.
because they've
Well-
really been playing reasonably well, never getting
Yeah.
the rub of the green. It's been a little bit lightweight in a couple of positions, but the two Argentine centres, Moroni and Orlando, have made a big difference so far. Newcastle look like a team on the front foot. 5 metre line out, taken by Robinson, down to ground. You guess who's going to get this? Bristol come around, but Newcastle, Connor Collett slipped away from the Bristol defence that was so intent on getting around to where George McGuigan was that they missed Connor Collett going through a little gap. Try Newcastle.
Well worked. 'Cause I think everybody in the Premier League thinks that that's going to be a driving maul when McGuigan hit the back, don't they? They just were not ready for that
To be honest, Stubbs, I think it probably was going to be. As the gap opened up, Connor Collett saw it and just went through it.
That is the first try from that driving maul, a 5 metre throw in that I think George McGuigan hasn't scored this season, and he's got 4, hasn't he? So top of the tree in terms of try scoring. Bit soft from Bristol not to have a guard on that side, just to mark Connor Collett, who ran in completely unopposed. You'll never score an easier try, to be honest.
Everybody was looking back at McGuigan. 3 Bristol defenders, I think it was, went up the right-hand side as they were defending and just got fractured off, and the gap just opened up.
Yeah, and clever from Newcastle as well, because it scored in the corner before from Carreras from the long, wide missed 2 pass, and he was still out in the wing just offering that threat, so just offering that little corridor of uncertainty, as Boycott would have called it.
Schoeman, ball is just outside the 22, 16 metres from the left-hand touchline. It's on its way, and he's missed that as well, so that's just gone to the left-hand side of the post, so he's not having a good night with a boot. This is his first opportunity to kick points for Newcastle, and hasn't gone well so far.
He wasn't actually kicking well in practice either. I watched him kick from out from the wide on the left.
Right.
And he wasn't kicking well.
Well, he's got to get his dead-eye dick eye on it, because Newcastle might need to be kicking goals before the end of this game, because this isn't the end of Bristol. We've got a 10-3 game, and we've got 17 minutes of the first half to go. AJ McGinty gets the game restarted, taken by Tom Penny, wide out on the left, feeds it inside to Callum Chick. Callum Chick runs into the weight and arms of Captain Jake Heenan, taken down to ground just inside the 22, 15 metres
use it.
from the left-hand touchline. Sam Stewart bringing it back. He's got the hurry up from the referee. They all know now that they've got to get on with it, and Sean Robinson gets in there. That ball is bouncing around. Robinson gets hands on it. Newcastle managed to get in and around the receivers. Ball moved on to Orlando. Orlando just dips his shoulder, tries to keep it alive, but in the offload just gives it to Heenan. Ball is back in Bristol hands. Uren gets there, it's in midfield, 5 metres inside, Newcastle's off. Sinclair holds onto that one. McGinty changes direction, pushes a pass towards the left-hand side of the field, and that is full-back Rich Lane that puts his left foot through it. Well, that's recovered by Tom Penny, who hammers the ball downfield. McGinty is there, comes back towards the Bristol 10-metre line. That ball's bouncing in front of, I think that is Adam Radwan, who's down there, who puts his right foot through it. And that's a kick that just goes beyond Andy Uren. Can't kick it directly to the touch because he's taken it in himself. He comes out of the 22. That's a nice kick by Uren. Tom Penny fends it, and he's looking for the space. The space is out on the left-hand side of the field. That's not a good kick. Well, it's not a pretty kick by Tom, but it's effective.
It's scruffy. That's the third one he's hit in this left-hand channel, Smithy, where he's found grass, 2 grubber kicks, and one a little bit messy in its execution, you could argue, but still
Time
made a
off,
good
please.
25 metres there and ended the kicking competition with Newcastle in the dominance. And the referee's going to have a look at something here.
No, Jake Heenan is
right.
getting treatment over there.
I was going to say that you showed Carreras' try before, and I think it's a bit late to look at that, the first one.
No, they surely couldn't go back for that. Nothing would surprise me in this game anymore, but that would be a little bit late, I think.
And we know Luke Pearce got some things wrong the other weekend, but even he can't go back 15 minutes to review a try, can he?
I don't think he can. And looks like Jake Heenan is restored, and he is having a chat with Luke Pearce, who just pats him on the shoulder. Heenan, of course, at Connaught with Pat Lam. Came across 30-year-old New Zealand 20s player a while ago now, and he's captaining Bristol tonight.
Yeah, can't wait.
Cape on gets the
Good
ball
vision,
in the yellow scrum cap. Doesn't need the call. They know exactly what's going to happen, predetermined. And 5 men in that Bristol line. Bowie's in the middle of it, and Bowie gets up, takes that ball down. Bristol still playing the game with 14 men. At home still on the naughty boy step. Cape on's got the ball at the base of the contact, and you can hear our referee giving Andy Uren the hurry up. Got the ball in hand now, it's in the air, and that's going to have Tom Penny underneath it. Tom calls for it, jumps and takes it at pace, and he's hit as he hits the ground. Connor Collett latches onto him. Bowie is on the wrong side. That could be a penalty against Bristol. Referee's happy. Ball is into the hands of Callum Chick, who expected Peterson to get that, and that pass just was between two players really, Staffs, and neither one of them quite knew who was going to get it.
Yeah, it's actually, to be honest, neither of them were prepared for it. You know, the hands were down by their side. Stuck it up at the last minute. It just came off his body in his hands and went to ground. It's not an easy pass to take, but you know, you should be taking them at this level.
Luke Pearce is really trying to give the hurry up to both teams here, isn't he?
Yeah, quite right.
Yeah, well, rightly so. Yeah, rightly so. He wants the scrums completed quickly, and they are the bane of the modern game.
But then the players start asking questions, and he's got to answer them.
Yeah.
It isn't the forwards, it's the backs that are coming in. Tom Penny and then McGinty.
We've had one scrum complete from the set so far this match, and it just burns time off the clock. It's not entertaining for anybody other than you're a prop.
14 minutes to the first half to go. 10-3 Newcastle ahead on the scoreboard. 2 unconverted tries. First one on 17 minutes by Carreras, the second one on 22 by Connor Collett. McGinty scored Bristol's try, a lovely break that led to the try, and Newcastle driving too quickly. Taken quickly by number 8, Marcus Bradbury. Edinburgh player moves it on to McGinty, into the hands of fullback Rich Lane. Gets beyond the first player. Connor Collett brings him down to ground. Uren, lovely pass to Chris Bowie, who ducks his head into the contact. Trevor Davison is there, and he's not to ground at the moment. He is to ground now. Ball is back for Uren. Moves it across to McGinty, on to Kyle Sinclair, who just changes direction and runs straight at the first Newcastle player he can see, and that is Sean Robinson. Ball is back in the hands of McGinty. That's a big long pass to Luke Morahan and Carreras, whose defence has been superb in the last 3 games, or the last 2 games that I've seen him play. Certainly he was the outstanding player down at Worcester. If any Newcastle player could be said to be outstanding, just tackled Morahan there, but Leicester. Bristol recycle the ball. It's into the hands of not Piers Morgan but Piers O'Connor, and it is second row Joe Joyce that takes the next contact. Change of direction as Uren brings it back towards the middle part of the field, and again Sinclair can't bring that ball in. It's a knock on by Kyle Sinclair, but it's knocked on again by Connor Collett. I walked the dogs at lunchtime and it absolutely hammered down, and it kept on hammering down all afternoon. It's a lovely night now, but that pitch must be really wet, even though it's a plastic surface.
Yeah, I don't think it holds moisture particularly. It doesn't dissipate the moisture particularly well, rather, with it being a plastic pitch, because the drainage takes a long while for it to actually be effective. But still, they're good rugby conditions. These are professional sides out there, obviously, and the ball handling from especially Kyle Sinclair tonight has just been really poor.
Well, you saw him get tackled there, Staffs, and he got tackled, and you could almost see the ball just squeeze out like a bar of soap from his 2 arms that he was carrying it in.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, Falcons are closing them down and are hitting hard, and that's the type of stuff that just puts a team like Bristol off the stride a little bit.
And I think they're missing 2 or 3 big name players, which I said before the game, and they can make a huge difference. They can alter the outcome of a game.
You can only play what's in front of you, though.
Yeah, you can
only play what's in front
absolutely.
of you. Newcastle have got that team to face tonight, and at the moment they're 10-3 ahead on the scoreboard. And from a Newcastle point of view, that's as much as you can do.
Yeah, and deservedly so as well, in terms of the pressure they've exerted, the incision they've got, line speed and defence and accuracy and attacksmanship.
Newcastle hooked that scrummage. It's at the feet of Callum Chick. And Sam Stewart's given the hurry up again by a referee. Tom Penny steps inside, he can get away from, was that Uren that came across? It was, but he managed to get scragged by the next line of defenders. It's Callum Chick that drives through Chris Bowie. Ball is on the floor. Sam Stewart gets there, and he's been told he's got to use it. Brocklebank gets himself out of there. Connor Collett takes a ball, almost has Jake Keenan at the same time, but managed to step up his left foot and come inside the Bristol captain.
Use it!
Sam Stewart brings the ball back with his right foot onto the 10-metre line of Newcastle, 15 metres from the left-hand touchline. That ball is in the air. That's got Luke Morahan underneath it, but he's tackled immediately, and that's knocked forward by Henry Purdy. And it's a game strewn with errors, Stas, but the errors mostly are coming from Bristol Bears.
It is. This is. I think it's a bit of a lack of confidence. Early on, they made a few mistakes. Newcastle hit them hard. It was. I think it's reflective of the confidence that when Bristol got a penalty in front of the post, they took the kick. When Falcons got a penalty in front of Bristol's post, they took the scrum and they scored. You know, a couple of seasons ago, Bristol would have either kicked for touch or they'd have kept the ball. They wouldn't have taken the penalty.
Newcastle are a totally different side, in my opinion, with Will Welsh playing.
Yep.
I don't like him playing a 6 necessarily. He's a 7 for me, but he's in the 6 and he's captain the side. Intelligent lad. And the two Argentine centres made a big difference. This looks a completely different Newcastle side.
It is completely different from certainly last weekend, Smithy, which was pretty awful in that second half. It's not just that, putting Bristol in the press, it's the line speed and defence. You've got to give Falcons credit for the way that they're attacking the first of
penalty for Newcastle at that scrummage. Sorry, Dean, to cut you off, but our referee is saying Sinclair is the one that went down to ground. He's on his knees again. He's looking at the referee.
Yeah.
I wouldn't normally say this, but he's having such an awful game. You know, you would start to think at half-time he might be one of the players that we're looking at substituting, because so far he's dropped 3 or 4 and he's given away 3 penalties.
Well, I'm sure that'll be going through Pat Lamb's mind as Tian Schoeman puts Newcastle on the front foot again. That's going to be another 5-metre line out to the men wearing all black, and Joe Joyce is coming back. Ed Holmes, should I say, is coming back onto the field. So his 10 minutes on the Richard Arnold Memorial sin bin is finished, and he's back to take his place in that second row.
Referee Luke Pearce must have a bus to catch or something, or a train or a plane, because he's hurrying every set piece. He's
got a stag do to go to. He's up for a wedding, man. That's the only reason he's refereeing.
Right, okay.
He's got a wedding at the weekend up here, so he's off to a stag do somewhere in the big market. So he wants to get away pretty sharpish.
You're not invited?
No, I'm not, unfortunately.
That's a surprise.
And 5-man Newcastle line, a lot of movement there as they come forward now. Peterson takes it two-handed down to Collett. Collett to Sam Stewart, tries to get it back inside. They are trying to avoid McGuigan now. This is going to be interesting as this develops during the game. Ball moved on to Will Welsh. Turns his whole side into the tackle. He was cut off at the knees. No arms in that really by Bristol, but the referee is happy. Well, he's not. He's playing advantage actually. And the referee is still playing advantage. Newcastle, Trevor Davison heads towards the try line. The ball is on the floor. Into the hands of, that's Callum Chick. Is he across the line? He's not across the line. Newcastle pick and drive up the right-hand side again. This time, Newcastle are over the try line. And Newcastle are playing some heads-up rugby. They try to avoid George McGuigan again. Collar Collett brought it round on the opposite side. Tried to give it to Sam Stewart, but you can't keep the scoring machine out of it. And ultimately, he got the try.
Yeah, they did very. And also, if they had actually let the ball out and passed the short side, past the left, it was an open try there as well. So Bristol defence is just totally losing its shape when there's a little bit of unstructured play.
They are so tied up mentally to McGuigan getting the ball at the base of these mauls moving forward. Connor Collett there took that ball, deliberately looked for Sam Stewart running round into the 5-metre channel. It didn't quite work out because he got brought down to ground before he got to the line and couldn't get the ball away to Carreras. But in the resulting maul that went round on the right-hand side, McGuigan's the one that popped up with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Schoeman's got his first kick of the night, which is good to see. Easy in front of the post. That'll give him a wee bit more confidence in terms of kicking the six. Newcastle just playing some really intelligent rugby at the minute, Smithy, and declining 3 points on 2 occasions to go for the try. And credit to them, because they are going at a rate of knots. They needed a big performance in this game, and certainly so far in this game they're putting a big performance in.
7 minutes of the half to go here at Kingston Park. Newcastle ahead 17-3 on the scoreboard. You're listening to Gallagher Premiership Rugby on the home and North East Sport, BBC Radio Newcastle and BBC 5 Live Sports Extra. Newcastle couldn't bring that restart in. Bristol have got it in the form of Jake Keenan. Ball moved into midfield. Advantage being played by our referee. It's advantage to Bristol.
It's got it over, Smithy, from the knock-on.
All right, okay, advantage over. And Newcastle, have they managed to get in there? Uren has got hands on the ball, so they haven't managed to get in there. He's looking to use the narrow channel on the left-hand side of the field. That's fullback Rich Lane, who's dancing in front of Newcastle defenders. Bristol committed a lot of bodies to securing that ball. It's back in the hands of second row Joe Joyce. Early 20s player, 28-year-old now, makes the contact. Ball's in the air from Uren. That's got snow on it. That's miles in the air, and Schoolman couldn't bring it in, but it's on the Bristol side into the hands of, well, that is McGinty, who's into space again. Can Newcastle? They've got 4 on 1 here. Well, Morahan's gone inside when Bristol really had numbers on the outside. McGuigan's involved in the tackle. Chris Vui wanted that ball. He's calling for it. It's back to Sinclair. Sinclair wrapped up by Peterson in midfield, just inside Newcastle's 22. McGinty just gets a bit lost because he's got Bristol players in front of him and he couldn't kick when he wanted to, and that ball is on the floor. Newcastle get lifted back over the contact. Kyle Sinclair takes a short ball from Andy Uren, hits the ground. Uren is there again, feeds it on to the man just returned from the sin bin, Ed Holmes. Ball's going to be moved on by Uren again on to Hooker Capon. Capon tries to get through the contact, managed to wriggle away from the arms of Anton Brogglebank. Uren again picks and drives through a little channel that existed for a split second on the left hand side. Penalty Newcastle. Off their feet in the contact. Ed Holmes is there, not certain who the player was that went off their feet, but Bristol and Uren's looking at the referee, but everybody else just gets up and walks back. Jake Heenan is just walking past Luke Pearce. Well defended stuffs by Newcastle. We couldn't exactly see what the body positions were there, but they stuck at it. They really should have been opened up when Bristol had a 4-on-1. Yeah, there's been terrific commitment in defence by Falcons, without a shadow of a doubt. And if they can just last this last 5 minutes of the first half without a Bristol score, I think they're in a really good position for the second half. Not a good kick by Schoolman, and that just found Morahan into the hands of Rich Lane, and they're across halfway now, wide out on the left. Henry Purdy tries to get hands on that ball. Uren eventually gets there, picks it up, moves it back inside to Heenan. Heenan looks for runners. He's got McGinty. Then McGinty pats a ball across the middle that doesn't get anybody apart from Sean Robinson, and Robinson gets hands on it. Referee's happy it didn't go forward. No, it did go forward. I thought it went forward in the first instance, but the referee didn't give it. It's been given by Adam Leal, the assistant referee down on this side of the field. And that is Sam Stewart, who's having long words with our referee, and we're just trying to hear what's being said. I don't think anything untoward.
You are, George.
And well, he's marked the scrummage and nothing else, so I'll turn that back down. I'm so conscious of getting told off by our engineers all the time about the ref might be too loud. I'm certain I'm missing stuff because it's really quiet in there, so I've turned it up and Dom's going to shout at me when it gets too loud again.
I think there's not much to pick up, honestly. I think we've spotted what Luke Pearce is trying to do in the game. He's trying to speed it up. Dom says you're all right.
I'm all right. There we go.
He's trying to speed the game up in terms of engagement at the scrum, and line out is where he wants taken quickly. He's making the players move the ball from the base of the breakdown, the ruck situation within the 5 seconds, and that's good. And that would normally suit a team like Bristol to play that quick tempo, but at the minute they're just not executing with any great degree of accuracy.
They actually look more dangerous from returning loose kicks from Falcons. So if Falcons just stop giving them chance to counter-attack, I think they could go in with a cracking lead.
Well, the scrums are brought together, and Uren is bending. He's going to feed that ball in. Eventually it gets in there. It's going to be number 8 Marcus Bradbury releases that ball. The referee gets in the way of Andy Uren, but AJ McGinty steps inside. He should never have got away there. Newcastle's defence was incredibly poor as McGinty stepped around 3 players. Eventually Orlando brings him down. That's a chip through. That's found Adam Radwan. Well, it hasn't. It found Tom Penny, and Tom Penny passed it to Tian Schoolman. Schoolman to Carreras, and Carreras did exactly the right thing there. Just got rid of it. Newcastle trying to play a dangerous game, Staffs along their own try line, and it could have gone horribly wrong.
It certainly could have. It was, as you say, it was exactly the right thing to do. As soon as Carreras got it, the medium hoof, it wasn't the big welly, didn't quite manage that, but it was the medium one, into touch, and let's try again and defend from the line out.
Full line out for Bristol. Chris Vui down to Andy Uren, big long pass to O'Connor. O'Connor taken down in midfield by Orlando. Newcastle's defence drifts out to the left. Ball's in the hands of number 8 Bradbury. Onto AJ McGinty. The ball is out now as the pace is turned on by Rich Lane. Henry Purdy's outside and the ball's on the floor. Uren brings it back. It's Joe Joyce. Just ducks his shoulder. Hits the Newcastle defensive line. That ball moves free. It's into the hands of Sam Stewart. Stewart across to Orlando. Orlando's looking for space. It's into the hands of Callum Chick. It's basketball time here as Capon feels the full weight of Newcastle's number 8. Gets to ground on the 10-metre line. Ball's moved into midfield to Schoolman from Sam Stewart. Lovely kick for Schoolman. That's got Radwan at pace. Where's it going to bounce? It doesn't bounce for Adam Radwan. It bounces for Rich Lane. And Lane is taken down to ground, hooking the left-hand touchline. And he's into touch. If that had bounced, Dean, into the hands of Radwan, That would have been try time. That was a lovely kick by Tian Schoeman.
It was a great kick. It was, if anything, just a little too far and an uncount bounce. If it had just dropped 6 or 7 metres shorter than it did, I think Radwan would have been all over that like a rash. He was certainly quicker than any covering defender coming back. Pretty calm bounce. Well fielded, actually. I've got to say, one-hand take. And thereafter, the Falcons again exerting pressure and winning the line out. At the minute, they look a really good side. They've banished the dreadful performance from last week completely out the minds and look a really accomplished side.
Minute of the half to go. Newcastle win the line out. Just about. Peterson gets that big frame down on the ground, just about on halfway, just inside the Bristol half of the field. It's back into midfield, moved on to Connor Collett from Tian Schoeman. He fired that ball into his open side and managed to hang on to it. Still just inside Newcastle's half of the field. And Newcastle, through Orlando, pick and try and drive through. He did incredibly well. There's no guard there, but they just about scragged the Argentine centre. Ball has moved on through hands in a narrow channel, wide out on the right hand side of the field. Newcastle up to the 10-metre line of the Bristol Bears. Peterson doesn't decide to pass on that ball, just takes the contact from Joyce. Sam Stewart is there, moves it to Schoeman, flat pass to Callum Chick, runs into Ed Holmes, contact is made, change of direction onto Orlando, gives the dummy, tries to get through a gap. God, he's hungry for work, stuffs Orlando. He's never stopped all night.
This is exactly what Falcons should be doing at this time of the game. We've got just 10 seconds to go, and they're going through phases, which means they're keeping the ball.
Not anymore. Trevor Davison.
Who said that?
Trevor Davison couldn't get hands on it. Newcastle, there's a knockout, then an offside, so it's going to be a penalty to Bristol to end the half.
If you want to tap it and kick it in, it's half time, but it's up to you.
Well, I was about to say, so Bristol can't go through their phases, because about 5 minutes ago, Bristol were going through phase after phase and starting to look ominous. They're starting to look like the Bristol of old. But then Falcons stopped that in its tracks, and they've been playing keep ball for the past few minutes. So unfortunately, just a silly penalty, that time's gone.
Well, AJ McGinty's taken play to about 17-18 metres from Newcastle's try line, left hand side of the field. It's going to be Will Capon that throws it in. Not well taken by Bristol, and George McGuigan's the one that benefits. I suggest Sam Stewart just gets this off the field.
Absolutely right, yeah.
Well, it's back to Schoeman. Schoeman does exactly what we think he should do. That has been an exhilarating half of Gallagher Premiership rugby, not just because from our point of view Newcastle are ahead on the scoreboard, but this is diametrically opposed to what we saw in the second half at Worcester Warriors last Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's based upon a solid platform. The lineouts work really well. I've been impressed. Line speed and defensive stymied most of the game what Bristol try and do. We know how fluid they can be in their attacking shape and how dynamic they are at moving the ball around the pitch. They've defended really well. They've made the hits. They've been dynamic hits. And when they've had the opportunity to get into Newcastle's territory, they've scored 3 tries of high quality, Smithy. It's a diametrically opposed performance to last Saturday, which for 40 minutes that second half was just dreadful. And you're right about, in terms of the 2 Argentine centres, they're not making all the difference. The likes of Callum Chick has carried a lot today. Adam Radwan had the ball in his hands more often than we've seen in virtually any game, probably more often than this season as a whole, to be honest. But they're finding the space for him. The centres are creating that space. I think Staff said before, if they're not taking the ball into contact like Worcester did last weekend, which they could do pretty efficiently, they're acting as decoys and the ball is going wide, which is both in the space.
It isn't just having the ball in hand or Staff. Those 2 guys in that midfield are now a threat, and Bristol are looking at them as a threat, and that is freeing up space and committing more people to the central part of the field. Newcastle have had more space in wide areas.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually that last part, I know that the handling was a bit dodgy from both sides early on, but that last phase of play where there was Bristol keeping it for phase after phase, then it turned into Newcastle going through the phases with ball going to hand without any ball drop, was by far the best little bit of rugby that I think I've seen Newcastle play. I know they've played Leicester and I know they've played Quins, 2 top teams, and but Bristol are top of the Premiership, and this is definitely a different Newcastle side. And they put in what I said earlier on was, even if they put in just a good performance, that'll be a motivator. This is beyond what I thought they were capable of doing against a top of the table side like Bristol. They've played really well. They've put Bristol right off their game, and I'm sure Pat Lamb's thinking about his bench now.
Well, you're listening to Gallagher Premiership Rugby on the home of North East Sport, BBC Radio Newcastle and BBC 5 Live Sports Extra. We're at Kingston Park in the North East of England, the home of the Newcastle Falcons, and at half-time they lead the Bristol Bears 17-3.
I'll feed Joey at breakfast.
What I'm going to say now, do you have to stop and think that we are in one of the most developed nations on the planet?
Waking up the northeast like this.
Warm spaces are being opened here in the northeast. So people will be able to go to the library, the village hall, council buildings to keep warm so they don't have to use their own heating as much. They've opened a few already. The Baltic Art Gallery, where they've hosted the Turner Prize, is putting on a room. This is happening in Gateshead right now.
It's a difficult time. We're facing a global economic crisis brought about by Putin's war in Ukraine.
The energy bills will rise again tomorrow.
The average bill is probably going to be around £2,500, but for real heavy users it could be as much as £3,500.
The important thing is that the British government acted to make sure that people are protected from these high energy costs.
The sound of the northeast at breakfast. BBC Radio Newcastle, making a difference in the northeast.
Total Sport.
Ian Smith and Dean Gray.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Last Sunday, the wife had a look at someone about to give out a jobs list, so I vanished out the back door, headed to the Barmore ground of Wrighton Rugby Club to watch Wrighton Roses against the Workington Rugby Football Club Finches. The game ended Wrighton 33, Workington 12. After the match, I chatted to Wrighton head coach Richard Ward and Roses captain and chair of women and girls rugby, Alison Meek. It's an expanding game. There's a lot of people playing girls rugby now, women's rugby now. How strong is it at Wrighton?
We've worked really hard over the last few years to get a section up from grassroots. So we've got a really strong minis section where the boys and girls obviously play together, and then later on they separate off, and we've worked really hard to get some quality coaches to have women down inspiring the young girls and to try and get raise the profile of women's rugby just to make them want to get in. We've got coaches coming into schools. It's just really important that they see that there's women out there playing and that they've got people to look up to.
So how many people are in? This is the first team again I've been watching today. How many people are in the first team squad that train regularly?
We're probably close to 30 now, 30 women, and that's probably, and to be honest, it's a mix of all ages. We've got sort of ladies who are in the 40s playing, and we've got now, sort of the girls who have come through from the youth section who are 17, 18 come to the team. So yeah, we've pretty much got a wide spectrum of all age groups.
I remember my 40, it's a long time ago now.
It's brilliant to see. I mean, we do have a bit of a drop off sometimes when young women go to university, and that's great. We want them to go, we encourage them to play for their university team, and I think now we're just getting to the stage where we're starting to see some of those young women moving back to the area and coming back to play for her, which is absolutely brilliant. As far as me and Billy are concerned, us like old timers, when we've seen them play when they're 7 years old and then they're coming back to play senior side, it's really something great, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Makes you smile.
We've also got a touch team here as well, so we've got a team that plays regular touch games, and what we've done with that is use that as a bit of an introduction to women especially who maybe didn't play any team sports in the youth. So it's been a great sort of shop window to say, look, come find out what it's about, find out what rugby's like, find out about the social side as well, and get them into the fitness. And then from there they've played touch and thought, hey, I can do this, and then the women's contact team is then giving them something to play for, which has been great. So good options.
For my sins, this is the first time I've come along and seen Wrighton women play. There's a lot of smiles out on that field.
Yeah, we like to pride ourselves on being a friendly team. We like to welcome everyone, and I think at Wrighton what we're trying to provide is something for everyone as well. You've got old timers like me and a few others who are kind of knocking on a bit. We want something for when we finish as well. We're just starting to do a walk-in rugby session, which is mixed too. So we want to have something really from everyone, from tiny tots right up to us old guys.
That wasn't like Bozo game though. One girl did spend 10 minutes on the naughty girls bench. I mean, that was that was pretty full on.
That was our debut, I think. Coming back into the game, she hasn't played for a while. Yeah. She has trained with us, but she's going to be an outstanding player. She will channel that in her next game.
I was going to say, Billy, that actually looks a really accomplished rugby. I don't know the girl's name. I'm sorry, but
Rachel, she's actually played Premiership Rugby for.
Right. Good. I'm a good coach. Then I spot that. She looks very accomplished player.
Yeah. So look, and again, from our point of view, it's more than just a player. She's been so really well received when we've been coaching, helping the girls. Having that experience is what we've been missing, because ultimately that's what we've done. Is we've had a a group of women who've come together, and some of them have, first time they picked up a rugby ball was, you know, a month ago, 3 months ago, and to have somebody with Rachel's experience and sort of I don't know, just like leadership, it's just been fantastic.
She's an athlete, though,
she is.
Yeah, she's actually our local reverend as well at the church, so she's sponsored by
Divine Intervention. No wonder you won.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure to have her, because actually I think she brings a nice kind of calmness to our team, and everybody's really enjoyed having her down here.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, the final score in the game against Working, 33-12. Looking at the scoreboard at the top of the field, that suggests a relatively easy game, but as an observer, it was anything but.
That's right, it wasn't, and we've never played them before, so we didn't know what to expect. We're in a different league this year, so a lot of Cumbrian teams. So yeah, we're, you know, every game that we'll play them the first time, it's hard for us to suss it out. But yeah, they came out, you know, they were physical, they were big, and you know, they definitely played together for a lot of years, as you could see. And probably the first 10-15 minutes, our nerves got the better of us.
10 or 15, the first two, they scored a try almost straight from the kick-off. I mean, what were you thinking then, Ali? It's going to be a long afternoon.
I think everybody was a little bit intimidated. We just needed to calm down and play at our level. You know, we train really hard so that we know what we're doing out there on the pitch. And once we did calm down, put our first couple of tackles in, got tackled ourselves, we thought, no, we can do this. They were an absolutely lovely bunch of lasses to play.
Yeah.
It's going to be a pleasure going to play there away, I think, yeah.
But pace in any level of rugby is just, you can't stop it almost, and you've got a Billy Whiz, a female Billy Whiz there, haven't you? Was it 3 tries before half time, I think she scored?
We're really, really proud of her. She's come up through our youth section,
Right.
so that's
Laura
Wood.
Right.
Yeah. Outstanding player. I mean, just class.
Yes.
And it's not just speed. She's class tackler. Yeah. She knows her lines. She knows her stuff. It's that another one. Brilliant to see her come up through the youth rugby system and come in to play women's game.
And we've been so lucky to have such a wealth of youth coming through for the last few years. Unfortunately, we've had some girls who've been that good, and they're now playing for Premiership teams, and you know, off doing their thing, which is, you know, good for the women.
Well, they'll come back.
They'll come back, and but we're very, very proud to have that. You know, and it's something that, you know, we want. You know, as we're just a village, you know, ultimately we're just a little village club, and to have, I think last week we had 5 girls from here playing Premiership rugby. I think that's pretty special. Fantastic. As well as having a Wrighton women's first team playing at the same time as well. So that's something we're all really, really proud of.
Well, as a coach, you were 21-12 up at half time. As I say, I'm looking at that scoreboard, it says 33-12, so you managed to nil them in the second half. Yeah. The arm wrestle in the middle part of the field, it was a bit give and take, wasn't it? You got on top of them in the scrummage, but the line out was a bit even, and the rest of it was a bit even Stevens all the way through. But that pace, and again, once you got the ball in the wide areas in the second half, you looked like a dangerous side. Yeah,
and that was our game plan. We said that, you know, we said we looked at them and said, okay, look, they're going to be physical, they're going to be dominant up front, and you know, they're going to probably want to go through the middle of us. If we can just keep chipping it, we thought they would tire, and I think they did. You know, especially in that last sort of, you know, last bit, you know, we could just, you know, we could just work on it, and them little bit of skills, which was great from our point of view as coaches, that we've been working on to execute, because that's where we've probably lacked, you know, where them passes haven't maybe went to hand, or we've made the wrong decision. But I think a lot of the time the girls made right decisions in the right area, and we managed to execute.
You're cold, Ali. I'm keeping you out here in your strip still after the game. One last question.
Yeah, we're in the changing rooms.
The Reverend won't be drinking it, of course.
I don't know, actually. She's keen on a star or two, I think. So, yeah.
I'll edit that out. Just one last question. I mean, who's it next?
Keswick at home.
The coach always knows what the next game's going to be. Yeah. So another home game, when's that going to be?
It's next Sunday, the 2nd of October. Yeah.
We have actually played Keswick before. We went on tour to Keswick last year. They're a great bunch of lasses. Can't wait to play them again.
Well, I can't probably remember when they played them at the tour, but...
Tell you what, Dean, I went up there on Sunday afternoon. The wind was howling across the Barnmoor pitch, and there were so many smiling faces on the field playing and around the field from both sides. Working brought quite a few with them as well, but there's a lot of people from Wrighton there. Obviously their families were there, and it was just a really nice afternoon out.
It is, and girls and women's rugby is growing apace in the county, and I think elsewhere in the country as well. And it's terrific, because it's struggled for years, and it's a reflection, I think, of the national side. We're going to speak about that shortly. I find it odd that there's more and more clubs starting these sections in Northumberland. I get virtually one a week about this is what we're setting up, and yet second teams at some clubs are struggling to fulfil the men's fixtures. So power to the girls, to be quite honest, and let's hope that game continues to grow and flourish in the way it's doing now. It's terrific stuff.
The staff's Reverend Rachel, 10 minutes on the naughty girls bench. It could only happen in Wrighton, couldn't it?
Yeah, it's to be honest, I enjoy watching a lot of women's sports, basically because women react much better to technical coaching than the men tend to do. Women tend to focus much more on the technical aspects of what you're trying to get over, and they actually try to improve those technical aspects. And when you're coaching young and adult women, you find that it's really quite rewarding, whereas at certain stages in men's development they tend to ignore the finer points of the technical development.
Tell us about it.
And just get on with it, you know.
Well, if you've got a Sunday afternoon free and you're in the Wrighton area, I think Wrighton ladies are playing Keswick ladies on Sunday afternoon. I think that's a 2 o'clock kick-off. Don't quote me on that. Go to the Wrighton ladies website and or Facebook page and have a look. I just want to finish on something. I've never done this before, Dean. You're a referee, but I saw this on the referee actually put a message on the Wrighton Club webpage on Monday morning, and I'm going to read it. I hope you're well. I was the appointed referee to your ladies' home game against Workington Finches yesterday, and wanted to say it was both an honour and a privilege to have been involved in the game. Both teams showed tremendous spirit, determination, and showcased everything positive about the game, with the score not reflecting how the game was played out, as it was heavily contested by both teams, and unfortunately a couple of scoring opportunities were not capitalised by the Finches, which made the difference. I thoroughly enjoyed a very good spirited banter between everyone, as both teams had strong-willed characters, and all players represented themselves, their coaches and club with pride, spirit and passion. The atmosphere following the game in the clubhouse was outstanding. It was a pleasure to have been hosted by your club in the manner I was, especially being told I had to eat cake and custard. Best luck for the rest of the season, with regards, Mark. I think that's just wonderful that the referee was so involved in the whole event, really, that he took trouble to write in. You don't see it happen very often.
No, you don't see it happen very often, and I think it's great. And on a reverse thing as well, it's always nice as a referee to get feedback from the clubs you've refereed to say thank you for coming down, well done. Long may that sort of spirit continue, and well done to that young referee. I hope he enjoyed his cake and custard.
The half-time score here at Kingston Park: Newcastle Falcons 17, Bristol Bears 3. We'll be back with commentary of the second half next.
Half-time highlights.
Total Sport.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Callum Chick picks that ball, moves it across to Tian Schoolman, to Carreras. Can he get in the corner? He can get in the corner. Yes. Try Newcastle. Lovely pass by Tian Schoolman, straight from the hands of Callum Chick, and that looked, I've got to say the word I can only think of, staff, classy. Newcastle looked like a team on the front foot. 5-metre line out, taken by Robinson, down to ground. I guess who's going to get this? Bristol come around, but Newcastle, Connor Collett slips away from the Bristol defence that was so intent on getting around to where George McGuigan was that they missed Connor Collett going through a little gap. Try Newcastle. Trevor Davison heads towards the try line. The ball is on the floor, into the hands of, that's Callum Chick. Is he across the line? He's not across the line. Newcastle pick and drive up the right-hand side again. This time, Newcastle are over the try line, and Newcastle are playing some heads-up rugby. They try to avoid George McGuigan again. Collar Collett brought it round on the opposite side. Tried to give it to Sam Stewart, but you can't keep the scoring machine out of it, and ultimately, he got the try.
Total Sport.
Live from Kingston Park.
BBC Radio Newcastle.
Somebody you think was scripted that, because here Jim McGinty just gets the game restarted. The ball's in the air. That's taken by Tom Penny, again wide out on the left-hand side in Newcastle's 22. Wrestled to the ground, and that is that Piers O'Connor that was involved in getting Tom Penny down to the ground. Newcastle trying to create an angle, and they break away. The contact is now just about on Newcastle's 22. Sam Stewart's bringing it back with his right foot. It's in the air now, heading towards the left-hand touchline, and that's gone into the first row of the east stand, and it's going to be a line out to the Bristol Bears. What about 11 metres still inside Newcastle's half? It's just got to be more of the same, Dean, hasn't it?
Yeah, and I think a sensible option to get the ball under touch.
Taken by Chris Vui, being the go-to man for Bristol in the line out. Uren into the midfield area. Piers O'Connor takes the contact. Uren changes directions and moves back towards the right. Then McGinty, and the penalty is given for Brocklebank, getting McGinty around the shoulder, the head area. Advantage being played. Bristol just working through the phases. Another penalty given away And the referee had no choice but to come back for the advantage. Collar's got to be a bit careful there, Staffs, because he's on the floor and he played the ball on the floor. Even though the advantage was being played, he could still be yellow carded for that.
Yeah, absolutely. The referees are getting very hot on it. And to be honest, the laws are a lot more clear cut now. They've tried to clear up a lot of the stuff about left to the referee's discretion. So there are cues, and Luke Pearce is one of the best, so he's picking up on them very quickly.
Well, penalty here or here, he said, and that is McGinty that's put the ball down the right hand side of the field, and the assistant referee Adam Leal on the far side has put his flag in the air to indicate a line out probably about 7 or 8 metres from the Newcastle try line on the right, and we're looking for a replacement that's just come on, I think, taken by Vui again. Take my choice, should I say Holmes? It is Holmes took. I'll get it right eventually. Holmes got that ball down. Bristol group around the big man, and it is number 23, Sam Bedlow, who's come onto the field for Bristol. And Newcastle's defence is strong, and they're driving Bristol back from 10 metres from the line. They're now 22 metres from the line.
Bristol,
hooking the right-hand touchline. Bristol being told to use it. Sinclair picks, moves that ball in field to Vui. Vui grabbed round the legs by George McGuigan, hits the ground. Uren moves it on again into the hands of Captain Jack Keenan, or Jake Keenan should I say. Ball moved on from Uren again into the hands of replacement Bedlow, who's wrapped up by 2 Newcastle players immediately. Newcastle players rolled away from the ball. Uren moves it to Sinclair, brings it back inside to Lucette prop Jake Woolmore. Uren keeps the ball moving towards the right. AJ McGinty moves it on. There's lots of Bristol bodies there, not much space to work in, so they take the contact, and the ball, well, I thought Newcastle player looked at the referee Staffs to see whether he was offside or not. I thought he might be given offside, but referee said it's okay, so it's a free ball. Bristol still have it, and it's Chris Vui that's trying to get away from Newcastle defenders. Again, they are about 17-18 metres from Newcastle's try line, wide out on the right. Ball is into Sinclair, ducks his shoulder, taken down to ground. That is Adam Brocklebank and George McGuigan involved in that, and again that's a lovely pass, and McGinty tries to get through a gap that closed on immediately. Uren is there in midfield, being told to use it. They're going to pick the pack, are going to move up the left hand side. Woolmore picks that ball up, moves it up the left.
Advantage, one offside.
And one offside. Brocklebank again being caught by our referee. Sinclair picks and drives. Connor Collett and Peterson involved in the next tackle, but the space now wide on the right hand side of the field, and it is, not sure who that is to be honest with you. Looked like the number 80, and that was jinking around in front of me, but they couldn't get the ball into the wide channel. Another advantage coming. Newcastle just given too many penalties away, Dean.
Yes, they are. They're any side put under pressure close to the try line, somebody's going to cough up penalties, and Newcastle are doing that. Well,
Sinclair, that ball gets knocked away from him. There's a knock on by Newcastle, I think, but the referee will still be playing advantage. And he's still playing, he says. And Newcastle, Will Welsh came around, and the referee then decides he's going to go back for the advantage. Will Welsh just keeps a hold of Andy Uren.
Just to go back to the earlier decision, Smithy, when you said you weren't certain the ball was out, it may not have been past the back foot, but as soon as it's picked, the scrum half is fair game. Yeah. So that was a good call actually in the hit.
Well, the Newcastle player just looked at the referee and he wasn't certain, because he looked and put his arms out, and he didn't get a no, so he went for it. And this time they're not going for point Staffs, they're going to tap and drive. And it is Hooker Capon that's got it in his hands and heads towards the Newcastle try line, but he's absolutely hammered back in the tackle. And the Prawn Sandwich Brigade are coming back to take seats in front of us, so no doubt I won't be able to say anything in a couple of seconds' time when they wiggle their way back in front of me. Bristol still on the attack. Another penalty comes against Newcastle. It's got to be yellow card territory if Newcastle aren't careful here. That's going to be 3 or 4 or 5 penalties Newcastle have given away in the first few minutes of the second half. Intense pressure from Bristol Bears. They will be immensely disappointed if they don't score from this period of play. We've got a 17-3 game at the moment. You hear what the referee's saying: if you pre-bind, stay up. And that is Connor Collett involved in the next tackle. Still advantage, the referee saying. Bristol 2 metres from the Newcastle try line. They are getting ever closer. Newcastle still playing against the referee's advantage. Bristol move it again. Peterson involved in the tackle. Still advantage, the referee says. Stout defence by Newcastle, but it could all be for nothing if the advantage comes back.
Second advantage,
and he will be coming back for it.
Newcastle get on side.
It's a long time to defend when you know they're just going to come back. This is a defence against nothing, really.
Offside.
And the offside.
He's got to have a word, doesn't he?
You think so?
Area,
I mean, that must be. However, we've only played 6 minutes of the second half. I think Newcastle have been penalised 5 times.
Yep. And it's the area the penalties are coming, Smithy, which they tend to, as we said before, in that red zone, 6-7 metres or within 5 metres of the try line. And the next time I think the referee gives a penalty, it could be a card straight away. It'll certainly be a warning.
Capon is going to tap and drive again. Well, he taps and he heads towards the try line under the posts. He's a metre short. Bristol group around them, or the ball is back on Bristol side. Newcastle's defence is strong at the moment. Are they offside there? No, the referee's happy. No arms come up. Well, penalty is
there it goes.
And this is going to be, well, Newcastle managed to get that ball back.
There you go. Yellow card.
Is he going in his pocket yet?
Yes, he's already gone, it's out.
There he goes. And who is it?
I think it's Connor Collett heading off the field, Smithy.
Right, it is Connor Collett who's going to the Richard Arnold Memorial sin bin.
You know, when I said I hope he learns quickly.
Okay, we're going to play.
Their spoke a teacher. Didn't learn quick enough, did he? So Connor Collett has got 10 minutes to think about his misdemeanours. And Bristol take the penalty again. Newcastle down to 14 men. Same drill. Capelon takes it into contact. Side entry, the referee was saying. Another penalty against Newcastle. And this is becoming either tiresome or really difficult for Newcastle. That ball is in the air. Carreras jumps and gets it. He's taken in the air. And what's the referee going to do there? Because that could easily have been given as a penalty against Bristol. A Bristol player's concerned over there, actually standing over the top of Matteo Carreras. I'm sure there's no intent in there at all to do any damage, Staffs, but he caught Carreras in the air.
He's gone back to the first penalty. For
let's
Bristol.
see what happens, what we wanted to do.
TMO could feed into that, Smithy.
That could be a double, because even if it's after the penalty, if it's still dangerous play and foul play,
thank you. Okay, let's go.
Something could be done.
No,
nothing. It's a TMO call, that, or assistant referee call. Certainly there were hands on the player, but the hands were up initially going to the ball.
Well, it's been taken this time by tight head prop Sinclair, who heads towards the Newcastle try line, picked and driven up the right hand side of the contact. They drive for that line again, Bristol. Chris Vui's got hands on the ball. Don't think the referee's indicating advantage, but he is now. That's another penalty Newcastle have given away, and this is now into wider areas, into the hands of AJ McGinty, and that's dropped by Bristol.
There we go.
And another
Somebody
penalty
else,
is going to be in the bin.
Offside.
I actually thought he would do that last time.
Sean Robinson is the one
quick succession
who's gone to the bin. So Newcastle are now playing with 13 men and still facing a 5-metre penalty.
They are. I think Bristol take a scrum, obviously, in this situation. They won't tap and go. They don't need to. They can sucker 8 forwards into that narrow space. If Newcastle don't put numbers in, then they've got to drive. There's space all over the field. They'll take the scrum. And really, Newcastle at this point, it almost sounds counterintuitive. Might be better saying to Bristol, we'll allow you to score this one, because they go one more man down, they're going to have a dreadful 6 or 7 minutes with 12 men on the field.
I think it's going to be dreadful now with 13, to be honest with you. I mean, it was a great game with 15 aside, but you know, when you've got 13 on the field, the space just opens up everywhere, Staffs. That in a side like Bristol are going to exploit it.
It is. I mean, we've had 10 minutes of this second half now, where it's been Bristol and a little bit more Bristol, and all Falcons have done is defend and give away penalties in the red zone, so it doesn't all go well for the rest of the half, that's for sure.
Well, they've just got to get through this next 10-minute period, not taking too much collateral damage, Dean, and see, and after that, if they're still on level terms, see where they go from there.
We knew there'd be a backlash from this Bristol side. They're too good, even missing some of the superstars they would normally have in the side, Smithy. And the slight worry I was going to say at half-time is they've finished really strongly in their first 3 Premiership games. They've nicked a couple right at the death. So we know the stamina and the sort of conditioning and the DNA and the way the play is there, and they will keep running and going to the end.
Sean Robinson looks absolutely fed up with life as he trudges down the touchline at the far side of the field.
Number 3, pre-engaged.
And early engaged by Newcastle. A free kick to Bristol.
Another scrum.
Yeah.
It's all right, it's taking time off the clock from a Newcastle point of view, but the clock is still ticking, but they've still got an awfully large part of that 10 minutes to worry about.
Let's go.
It's to Newcastle's credit after 10 minutes of all Bristol, and it's actually to Bristol's detriment that Bristol haven't scored. They've had all the ball and they still can't get it across that try line.
Well, I think they'll be hoping they can this time. Newcastle are scrummaging with, what are they scrummaging with? They've got a number 8 and 1 back row player in there, so they're 1 man short in the backs, and that ball is fed. And Bristol are rumbling forward. And it's stuck at the feet of number 8. Well, the penalty's coming to Bristol again. Uren picks it up into the hands of McGinty. Big long pass, and it's out to the wing. Henry Purdy slides in the corner. That was always going to end just one way, as Henry Purdy gets the easiest try that he's ever going to get. The crowd here at Kingston Park don't like it, but our referee's been consistent all the way through, and if you infringe, you're going to get penalised.
I'm not sure what the crowd didn't like about that. It was a perfectly good try. There was no problem with
it's
it.
It's the people in the bin that they don't like. I think that's that's where the anger's coming from. And McGinty has got the kicking tea and the water bottle.
I'm a little surprised Bristol did open it. Actually, they had a drive on, they had a nudge on. The ball's at number 8 feet, and they scored out wide, haven't they? Which makes the kick a little bit more difficult. I think had they just kept driving that scrimmage, the referee would have been forced to give probably a penalty try.
I think he was probably telling them to get to use it. To be honest, he's been doing that the whole game, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I think in seasons gone past as well, with Stephen Luatua, the captain at number 8. That you're right. That would have happened. They have changes, don't they? They don't have the marquee players that they did when they were winning everything.
McGinty's got the ball on the tee. He steps forward. He strikes it right-footed, and he's hooked that badly. That was always going to go well left of the post as it left the ground. That's not it. You don't normally see him kicking like that, Dean.
No, you don't. He's normally one of the more accurate kickers in the Premiership, and I don't know whether the ball's a little bit, the ball's a little bit greasy. Underfoot is still, as we said before, a little bit slippy, and they're conscious of that, just the way they address the ball. But neither kicker kicking the sticks has had a particularly successful night. 0 from 2, isn't it? For 1 from 3, sorry, for Schoeman.
Well, the ball boys are doing a good job. There's no ball on the field, but Luke Pearce has stopped the clock, so there we go. So they've decided that we might as well get a ball on and get started again.
That's Andy Uren off.
Andy Uren is off, which means that Randall has come on. Different sort of problems now for Newcastle.
Sniping,
the pace
running.
has certainly gone up a lot. Andy Uren is off the field. T and Schoeman going to get the game restarted. The ball's in the air. It's heading towards the left-hand side of Bristol's defensive alignment into the 22. Kyle Sinclair gets in the way, and it is Randall that feeds the ball on to captain Jake Heenan. Ball is into the hands of O'Connor, kept alive. But there's 2 scrum caps on there now, so I'm not certain who that one is. I think that is Heenan that's turned his back. Into Chris Vui, it's on to Harry Thacker. Thacker's on as well, and they just butcher that, and that has gone forward, and Randall, not very clever really, kicks the ball away. And let's see, we've got Will Capon has left the field, so Harry Thacker is on. Who else is on there? And is that Ed Holmes with the scrum cap?
Let's go then. Let's find
No, it is. Has Jake Heenan left the field? There's 1 scrum cap there behind the front runner. There's not. There's 2, and that is Jake Heenan and Ed Holmes. And Harry Randall kicked the ball away.
Boys.
Sam Stewart eventually goes to get it.
Time is off.
Yeah, Newcastle rightly not being any great. Oh, he's stopped the clock again, the referee, hasn't he?
Just.
We can't run the clock down by walking everywhere. Listen.
We can hear the referee, and he's right. He's absolutely right.
Randall kicked it away, though. I mean, that's at the end of the day. I would have just left it for a ball boy to bring on.
Yeah, well, there wasn't a ball boy available, I think. So,
exactly.
One of the 3 Argentinian tenors has come across and is playing open side wing forward at the minute.
That is Orlando.
They had a bit of a chat about who should go in there.
He likes a bit of contact as Orlando, so he's the one that's in there.
Well, they both do, don't they, actually? I mean, they're both not massively built men, but they are powerful guys in the centre, and as we said before, can certainly take contact and barrel it up.
Staffs, they've just got to move this to Tom Penny and hammer it downfield into the 22 of Bristol and get Bristol playing from their own try line. Penalty Newcastle.
Wow.
Penalty Newcastle.
He's having a nightmare.
Kyle Sinclair goes down on one knee and he can't believe it. And second row Joe Joyce eventually gets to his feet. Maybe it was Joe Joyce actually that was the one that got penalised from the second row going down to ground. I've never seen that given before.
No, I wouldn't have thought
but,
so.
But he was the one that got up last off his knees, so...
But I think if Sinclair dips, he's going to dip as well. So, Sinclair's having a bit of a nightmare, isn't he?
He can get a little bit grumpy and go into himself when things don't quite go.
Are we talking about Smithy or Kyle
as he
Sinclair?
wants? Yeah, both.
Definitely, yeah. That's me. I did a Belgian profile. That's definitely me. Mr. Grumpy is what the grandkids call us. So... is Mr. Grumpy awake this afternoon, Granny? Is normally the call, but McGuigan's got ball in hand and he's getting the call from Brocklebank, and Adam Radwan is just changing that call, goodness knows why.
I was going to ask, is Adam Radwan calling the line out now?
There's 5 men in that line, and I'm being told that Bristol have made lots of changes, so I'll get them in a minute. And that's knocked forward by Bristol. Newcastle playing basketball into the hands of Orlando to Tom Penny, who runs into Orlando. He's going nowhere.
It's a knock on.
Joe Joyce wraps him up, and the crowd don't like it, but there's nothing wrong with that at all by Joe Joyce. just got a hold of him round the shoulders and threw him to the ground. That's absolutely fine.
I think,
yeah, and the referee doing the right thing, playing advantage to see anything should accrue from that. I mean, the ball's pinging around like a tennis ball there at times, wasn't it? But brought it back for the scrum a long way back. He probably could have blown that a little sooner.
I thought he should have done.
Yeah.
Well, the scrummage has been set. Let's just go through these replacements, because Jack Bates is off and Sam Bedlow is on, Andy Uren is off and Harry Randall is on, and number 2 Will Capon is off and Harry Thacker is on. So we've got all of those. Newcastle still down to 13 men, and we've got 25, just under 25 minutes to play. 17-8, Newcastle still ahead on the scoreboard. I think Newcastle have probably got about 4 minutes to go with 13 men. They'll get 2 of them back in pretty quick succession. There wasn't much time between them, only a minute. So we'll keep a close eye on that. The clock is ticking. The scrummage is going to be set by a referee. If Newcastle get this to ground without being penalised, that would be helpful. And we'll see what happens. The set is called, and that looks pretty solid, I've got to say, and that is in. Newcastle just about doing enough, and it's wheeled around. Penalty against Newcastle. Callum Chick picked it up. I'm not certain what that penalty was for, to be honest.
I think just folding in, and the wheel came on. Newcastle tried to correct it and get the ball away very quickly. I think we're particularly looking at the 8.
But when you wheel it, is that not a penalty?
If you wheel it deliberately,
So they wheeled it not deliberately, but it just happened to go the right way for Bristol. You're telling me, you're kidding me, aren't you?
Well, yeah, okay.
I've played in the front row for years, I've never understood it, I'll be honest with you. But anyway, the referee's given his decision, and it's going to be AJ McGinty that's going to take play up the left-hand touchline.
I just used to put the ball in and let you lads get on with it, to be honest.
I don't think anybody really knows. I mean, that's not a criticism of the referee, that's just an observation.
Yeah.
Nobody really knows what goes on in those scrums.
No, they don't.
And anyway, there's another replacement being made, and it's Kyle Sinclair who's got the shepherd's crook, and Kyle Sinclair leaves the field, which means that Max Laheath is coming on the field.
He's not earned his money today, has he?
He hasn't really, and just gets a tap from one of the Bristol players wide out there. They go with 4 men in the line. Chris Vui takes it two-handed down to Randall, into the hands of number 8 Magnus Bradbury. Edinburgh boy rumbles up to Newcastle's 22 in midfield. The ball from Thacker, moved back inside. Laheath is the one that tries to stay on his feet as long as he can. Randall is there, moves it across to Bradbury, but it wasn't, that was Holmes, and that is Joyce on the charge into Newcastle's 22, deep into Newcastle's 22. Randall injects some pace.
There we go.
Taken down to ground on the 5-metre line. Is the ball still live for Bristol? I think it is, and I think that tackle went away. It is in the hands now of Heenan. It's moved out. That's going to be a try to Bristol. That's a good try by Bristol, and it all came from the pace of Randall. He is just electrically quick, and if you're not on him immediately, you've got a major problem.
Absolutely. I was going to say, as soon as he came on, the defence around the breakdown has to be absolutely sound. Otherwise, he'll exploit any little bit of a gap that there is. He is very quick, and he's quick to see it.
The problem, of course, Staffs, is if you defend narrow to prevent that gap opening up for him, it leaves space, and he's got such gas he can do that lateral dart, correct, and come off either foot basically and make an incision.
Bear in mind, Newcastle are still playing 2 men short.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So the try was coming, the defended manfully. It can't be long before they're back up to a full contingent, you would imagine. So that was certainly coming. But still, he just shows what a quality player Harry Randall is, and there's some really good scrum halves, and Alex Mitchell, another one as well.
McGinty's got the ball on the tee, just outside the 22, 6 or 7 metres from the right-hand touchline. Looks up at the posts, just concentrates on the ball. His last kick wasn't a good one, but that was out of character for the former Sale fly half. American International, that looks a better kick. That's on its way. That is a beauty. That's straight through the middle. That's what we know he can do. We've got a 17-15 game. Newcastle's players must be just about ready to come back on the field, and 2 tries in the period when they were down to 13 men.
Yeah, I was just about to say that I think Newcastle did well to keep the score down to 5 after 17 minutes, but now we're 12.
Well, Newcastle, Jamie Bulmeyer is on the field, which means probably that Connor Collett has left the field, so it'll be number 7 that goes off, one would imagine, and Sean Robinson will be back on the field in a minute. So Jamie Bulmeyer is going to play on the open side.
Which still sounds odd, doesn't it?
It does sound odd, but I don't think he's done anything wrong in the games that he's played there, to be honest with you.
Absolutely right, yeah, he's been terrific.
21 and a half minutes to go here at Kingston Park. Newcastle ahead by 2 points, 17-15. Tian Schoeman gets the game restarted. Randall is underneath it, big high kick, and he returns the compliment. with a kick, a spiralling kick that finds touch. That's a nice kick by the young scrum half. He's only a dot, isn't he? He's tiny, but he's just he's elastically strong, if that makes sense. He just bounces off, doesn't he?
He's an old-fashioned scrum half, isn't he?
Yeah.
From the era where scrum halves were little whippets, just sort of barking and snapping around the heels of the big lads in the forwards, and that's exactly what he is.
Well, Newcastle going with 5 men in the line. Sam Stewart's in at scrum half. McGuigan is going to feed this line. Sean Robinson must be just about ready to come back on the field. And Robinson's on, actually, so they are back up to a full complement. That was Robinson that won that line out. Schoeman to Orlando, who runs straight, taken down to ground by Bristol Bears. Will Welsh takes that ball standing still, wrapped up by the big arms of Ed Holmes. Stewart feeds it on to McGuigan, gets across the halfway line, ball is available. Sam Stewart keeps it moving towards the left. Schoeman looks for a gap that doesn't really exist, taken down to ground immediately. Stewart keeps the ball moving to the left. Will Welch back inside to Trevor Davison, makes an extra 2 or 3 metres. Sam Stewart bends, picks that ball back onto Peterson, gets beyond the first man, taken down to ground by Laheath. Schoeman onto Maroney, spins in the tackle, past the first man, past the second man, taken round the shirt, pulled back, middle of the back, flat ball to Jamie Blamire at full tilt. Sam Stewart moving the ball back towards this right-hand touchline. And the run wasn't there from Tom Penny, so McGuigan is driven backwards by Bristol players.
No,
Sam Stewart looking for Callum Chick, takes that ball, just decides he's going to run into waiting defenders. Jan Thomas is on the field, which makes that means that Jake Woolmore has left the field. Ball is still on Newcastle's side, but they've been rumbled back about 10 metres. They're back inside their own half in the middle part of the field. Schoeman gets the ball from Stewart, flat pass to Davison, onto Maroney. Maroney eventually finds Carreras. Carreras wrapped up by Luke Morahan. Ball is on the floor. Ball is moved back inside to Cian Schoeman. No, Schoeman's back there.
Jamie
Blamire, who was the first receiver. Taken up by Newcastle. They're driving, pumping those legs up on the left-hand side of the field. The ball is on the floor. Sam Stewart looks for a gap. He finds it. Well, he's just scragged as he tried to get through a hole. He got through the hole. Bernard came out and pulled his shirt back. The ball is on the floor. Sam Stewart picks it up again, makes that ball available. It didn't go forward, it went backwards. Newcastle picking it up, driving through the middle of that Bristol defence. The ball is on the floor. Referee is happy that Bristol aren't offside. The ball is there for Stewart and moves it on to Brocklebank, wrapped up by Jan Thomas on the 22 in front of the Bristol posts.
Tackle!
It's on the floor, the tackle is made. Newcastle bundled back over the ball. Bristol just making a mess of that contact. Sam Stewart's hands are still on it. Well, Jimmy Blamire tries to find a gap, couldn't find a gap, and that is Rich Lane that puts his left foot through it, takes play up the right-hand touchline. Blamire team was so unlucky there. The gap just closed at the last time, but it didn't close. His shoulder came in and just knocked the ball away from him.
Yeah, he just hit a tremendous line. He's got such gas around the field, hasn't he?
Yeah,
when he hits those sort of lines, it's very good to pick up because it comes very late, and just for a little bit of control there, he was through. But terrific approach work for the Falcons there, even driven back by 15-20 metres, controlled the ball, still reluctant to kick it, searching for space. Carreras once again ball in hand running. Adam Radwan visible again, and both centres at times driving it up, at other times just lovely little offloads to get runners coming at angles. Really impressive from the Falcons in that passage of play.
Adam Brocklebank has left the field. Ugobi Molipola has come onto the Lucette side of that front row. He's in a nice little bun at the front of that line. A lot of movement from Newcastle. Robinson comes forward, but it's over the top. It's Will Welsh that takes that ball. And it's a penalty to Newcastle. Bristol didn't quite get the sack right. Newcastle have got advantage. Sam Stewart looks to create some space, feeds it back to McGuigan.
That was a forward pass.
And McGuigan not very happy with replacement Jan Thomas and lets him know. Jimmy Blamire comes in there and pushes Thomas away. And Mateus Orlando comes out. I'm sure he speaks wonderful English, Mateus. He's just come across to speak, probably in Spanish, to one of the props who I don't know speak Spanish or not.
I think some of the props barely speak English, mate. So.
Okay, cool.
That's easy for you to say.
I think most of them could order 2 beers in Spanish.
I think they probably could, just for themselves.
Post goal.
We'll have to
Posts
see.
Posts are going. So Cian Schoeman is going to go for the post. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it just puts them more than a penalty ahead, doesn't it? So it will give them actually more than it's an unconverted try.
Try ahead if he gets it. But this is on the 15-metre, 10-metre cross, right-hand side of the field.
And I think Newcastle also, Smithy, want to have a little breather there. That was a breathless passage of play, and they need to get points on the board after 2 scores by Bristol. So rather than take the risk of putting the ball down the line and attacking, I think probably a decent option. The only problem is that he hasn't kicked particularly well so far. We've never seen him kick so far in his career at the Falcons from this sort of distance.
It's going to be a big kick if he gets it, but we're down to 16 and a half minutes on the clock. So this half is just flying by. There hasn't been many stoppages, that's for sure. And Schoeman just staring up at the posts, arms swinging by his side as he concentrates. The ground goes quiet. 1, 2, 3 steps forward, strikes it beautifully. It's on its way. Where's it going to go? The crowd tell you where it's gone. It's gone straight through the middle. And T.N. Schoeman keeps Newcastle side of the scoreboard ticking for the first time in the second half, and that now gives Newcastle a 5-point lead. 20 points to 15. Just under 60 minutes to go, Dean, and it's a question of the Falcons. They can't just hang on. They've got to still play rugby, haven't they?
They have, yeah, definitely so. Deep kick-off there, received by Carreras. Oh, sorry, Tom Penny. They've just got to be careful not to let Bristol back into this game and sort of negate their attacking instincts.
Callum Chick's the one that took the ball into contact. Sam Stewart moves it on. Peterson just dances around the first Bristol defender that comes out towards him. Just hits the ground. Jake Keenan gets back to his feet. Harry Thacker is back to his feet as well. Sam Stewart picks and kicks. And for Bristol, 10 is off and 22 is on. So AJ McGinty is off the field and Callum Sheedy has come on. Not a bad replacement, Staff.
No,
Callum Sheedy coming on.
They now have to be doubly watchful because the threat could come from 9 or 10. Sheedy's a different player from McGinty, and if they've got used to defending McGinty, they're going to defend someone who's a whole lot different from McGinty now.
Taken by Holmes in that middle of that line out. The ball is moved on. Heenan can't bring it in, but it's in the hands of Tom Penny, who gets into space, taken down to ground on the 10-metre line of the Bristol Bears. Sam Stewart. Maroney is penalised for taking out a man away from the ball.
Surely there was a knock on.
There was a knock on, but the penalty, I guess, must override it.
The penalty overrides it. Scatter rookie miles past the ruck. You can't do it anymore. You can only clear out with the vicinity of the ruck, and that was a good 2 metres, 3 metres past.
So Maroney shaking his head ruefully as he walks back. Peterson just taps him on the head, and that ball is taken down the left-hand touchline by Callum Sheedy.
I think he said advantage was finished because they had progressed 15 metres.
Well, the penalty outweighs it anyway.
Yeah, it would do so.
Ball in Harry Thacker's hands. Bristol going with a full line of 7 men. Taken by whom? It's on over the back. Hasn't been taken by anybody. McGuigan to Schoeman. Big long pass to Maroney. Maroney steps inside then outside. Steps inside again. On to Carreras. Into space. Can Carreras get past O'Connor? He can. Can he get past the last defender? Can't quite get away. He's still in field now. He's not. And that is a tremendous attack by Newcastle. Wide out on the left-hand side of the field, and Radwan's doing his dinger because he wants his hands on the ball.
He does indeed, yeah, but he was miles away from it. It was never going to come back this side. I've got to say, when Carreras first came to the Falcons, I wasn't hugely impressed, and he's grown and grown as a player. He's certainly muscled up. His defensive work is excellent. And by gosh, he's got some pace, hasn't he?
But he was set away by Maroney, who went and stopped and went and stopped.
Yeah,
he knew when to give that ball. That was tremendous play by Newcastle's outside centre. Ball taken by Bristol. It's moved into midfield, and it's rumbled on towards the 22 by the Bristol back row. And that is the replacement. I'm trying to see who it was. Was that Sam Bedlow? I think maybe, not the back row, that rumbled that into contact. And Bristol clear the lines. It's going to be a Newcastle line out, 3 metres inside the Bristol half of the field.
That was a terrific attack, mine.
It was.
Can't underplay how good that was, and Maroney's footwork that made it. He kept the defence on the back foot all the time.
Can we not persuade the 3 Argentines to retire from international rugby and just play club rugby from now on? They've made such a difference.
And stop doing the gigs as the 3 tenors.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
That's,
there's a lot of stuff going on there in negotiating these troubled contractual times, which we'll touch on after the game's finished. Thinking about Worcester and the state of finances in English Premiership rugby. Ball down, Schoeman on to Blumeyer. Blumeyer just about gets away from the Bristol defence, but he's hauled back. Schoeman into the hands of Maroney, who kicks that ball, but not a good kick. And that has found, who was that found? That is fullback Rich Lane, who puts his left foot through it. Schoeman composes himself, hits it up the right-hand touchline, and that is Henry Purdy that tries to put his left foot on it. It bounces around, but he picks it up. And he's running into midfield. Callum Chick and McGuigan take down the left wing from the Bristol Bears. Ball is picked up by Randall, moved on. Bradbury wide out on the right hand side of the field. Heenan is there, takes the next contact. The ball is on the floor. Randall is there to move it back to Chris Vui on halfway, into the hands of Sheedy, across that back line. Eventually finds O'Connor. O'Connor looks for where he's going to run. It's into the hands eventually of Henry Purdy. Taken down to ground on the 10-metre line. Penalty Newcastle. Adam Radwan shows how pleased he is with that. We've got 11 minutes to go. 11 minutes 17 seconds the clock is telling us. Radwan pumps his arms in the air as Bristol are penalised for hanging on. I think that was Rich Lane that just couldn't get that ball away.
Hanging or sealing off, Smithy. You could give either two. There were people all over that ball like a rash on the floor, and Bristol are really sloppy on the ground. That's 3, 4, 5 times they've given away penalties on the deck. Most unlike them, they're used to having really quick ruck ball and playing off that, and they haven't had it tonight a lot of the game.
Well, Tian Schoolman, not much of an angle to work with, but he's only taken play up about 15 metres up that right-hand touchline. And it is Jan Thomas that's really trying to encourage the assistant referee, Mr. Meredith, on this side of the field to go further up, but he's not playing ball stuff. Sorry, I cut you off there.
No, you're all right. I was just about to say the Newcastle line-out's been working well. They've got some little moves there that are just leaving Bristol standing. You know,
taken by Peterson at the front. Sorry, Staffs. Peterson went up very quickly at the front. Taken in 2 hands. McGuigan, when the penalty comes to Newcastle, and McGuigan's still got hands on the ball. Jan Thomas is trying his best to work his way up the left-hand side of that maul. And McGuigan just taking his time, wants to get it to Radwan, but Radwan's got no space at all. The referee's still playing advantage, and Sam Stewart bends into the contact, moved on to Will Welsh, who just steps back inside. Will's wanting the penalty, that's what he's going for, and the ball is lost in the contact, so the referee comes back for the penalty, not coming in straight, coming in at an angle.
I'm pretty certain Will coughed that ball up fairly easily there, knowing that the penalty was coming.
And John Hawkins is on the field, so number 19 is on for Bristol. As far as I can see, there's only Dan Thomas, number 20, who isn't on the field for Bristol, so I think they've used all the bench. We'll find out in a second who it is that's left the field. And Tian Schoolman just talking to Adam Radwan, and Schoolman in 2 hands, and he's just going to nudge it up that right-hand touchline, and that's a lovely kick by the South African fly half. Sorry against that.
I was going to say, are we surprised he didn't take the penalty there?
No, get in the corner.
He kicked the last one, didn't he? Very well.
Yeah, about the same position as well. But Newcastle, I think they've got the centre blood now, haven't they?
Yep. They've got the centre blood indeed.
It would have taken them to 23-15, which is a converted try ahead.
Yeah, it's a long kick though, isn't it? And Newcastle have now got a line-out's been working well, as you said before.
Yeah.
And they've got a line-out where Blameyer is going to act as scrum half. Bit of movement there is Peterson. A lot of movement. Robinson. Will Welsh comes forward. A lot of movement, and it's taken by Robinson down to Blameyer, into Sam Stewart, runs into a waiting defender. It is Orlando that takes the next contact directly in front of the post, 12 metres from the Bristol Bears try line. Robinson just runs into waiting Bristol defenders, nothing else but banging it up, sucking the time out of the clock. We've got 8.5 minutes to go now as the hair of Lugovi Molipola flaps back as he's hit back in the tackle. Newcastle driving the play towards the left-hand side of the field. Ball is on the floor. Sam Stewart's going to bring this back towards the midfield area. He can't get back to his feet. He can now. McGuigan just takes and moves it on to Molipola, and they lose that ball in contact. It's in the hands of, well, there's 2 knock-ons there from Bristol, so it's going to be the first knock-on by Newcastle. Knock-on and knock-on.
When you're in the 22, you should never ever give a pass like that. He gave him man and ball, and if you hit the mid-range, you're taking the man and the ball, and the chances of the ball spilling and you getting a knock
but
on.
But Newcastle at the minute like playing on that edge. They like playing really, really flat, don't they? And that was the issue there. When it works really well. You can open up the defence and find that wee bit of space around the breakdown.
Do you not think at times though, moving the ball to the right-hand side of the field, they just want to play a little bit deeper and give it a Radwan?
Yes, I would.
He's been holding his hands up. Yeah, left. You know, every breakdown, holding his hands up. Get me the ball, because he knows he's got the gas to get there. And I think he's looking for the crossfield kick.
If they could manage to get Radwan the ball with 15 metres of space on the outside, he would skin Henry Purdy. I'm convinced of it.
The other thing, I mean, if you get 2 taken up with a flat ball, you forget the fact that if you stay a bit deeper, you've widened the margin for error in your passing. So if your passing's not actually going at 100% accuracy, just stay that little bit deeper, keep the ball. I mean, we've just got over 7.5 minutes left to go,
and a little bit narrow.
You need to keep the ball.
Well, Harry Thacker's had to leave the field, and it's Will Capon that's come back on. to take his place in the middle of that Bristol front row. That guy looked like he had a leg problem 5 minutes ago, and it's obviously proved to be a little bit too much. This scrummage is to the Bristol Bears, and it is inside their own 22, right-hand side of the post as they work from the south end of the ground. And I'm being told for Newcastle, Trevor Davison is off and Richard Palfreman is on. So Big Trev's work for the day is done. And the scrum is going to be brought together by Mr. Pearce.
Need to be squeaky clean here, don't they?
They do. And Richard Palfreman is going to have a big job on, and he's taking his time. Well, he penalised Newcastle for not getting it in the first half, and he was going to penalise Bristol there, but he didn't. So Sheedy moves that ball on. That's Rich Lane, who just pushes off Maroney, taken down to the ground by Orlando. Randall picks and he moves it back to Sheedy, who can't bring that ball in, and it's going to be a scrummage to Newcastle. And Callum Sheedy's staff just took, you could see, took his eyes off the ball as Newcastle defenders were getting really close to him.
It was also an uncharacteristically bad pass from Randall. Sheedy actually had to jump to catch it. It wasn't a great pass, but again, yeah, you're right. The Newcastle defence put real pressure on him.
And that's been really impressive throughout tonight. Is the line speed defence and the accuracy, apart from the scything through for the first try by Bristol. The two when they were down to 12, down to 13, then 12 men. Sorry, down to 14, then 13 men. You can accept that.
I said that earlier, Dean, but I mean, that just Will Welsh. He's just organisation, and he's a clever lad. He just organises things around him. And as a captain for Newcastle, he's done it for so many years now.
Yep.
I think Newcastle are a different side when he's in there.
I absolutely agree. Longest-serving Premiership captain before he relinquished that, so he will be by a mile now, and the youngest as well. And the very fact that after more than a decade since he first started doing that job, he's still being appointed as captain and still plying his trade as probably one of the first choice back rows, just shows how influential he is on the Falcons team.
4,213 is the Friday night crowd here at Kingston Park. Not a big crowd, but they've been fed some good fare, and no doubt they'll be coming back if they get games like this every time they arrive. And that ball is safely at the feet of Callum Chick. Newcastle driving forward.
Yes.
The penalty is there. Callum Chick picks. Advantage is coming. He throws the ball away, and that is going to be a penalty to Newcastle. And they've got this. They haven't got the scrum on toast, Saps, but they're just exerting that little bit of pressure. It hasn't changed since Trevor Davison has gone off and Richard Palfreman has come on.
I thought the last one they had just 2 minutes ago, they were unlucky not to get a penalty. I think Bristol were on the verge of collapsing it, and I was about to say just before they took that one, if they have the same push at this one, I can see Bristol giving away a penalty.
Dean, can you ask the guys in front if they've got worms?
They must have, yeah. I think they've got beers, to be honest, rather than worms.
All right. Well,
it's the prawn sandwich brigade, as you call them. Yeah.
Well, the sandwich must be good because he's been back about 4 times. T and Schoeman has called for the tea, so your wish has been given, Staffs, and the kick is going to be about 10.5 metres inside the Bristol half of the field, just to the right-hand side of the post. And the way he struck the last one, he's certainly got the distance. It's whether he's got the accuracy. That's going to be the big question.
He should have, really, because it's not plumb in the centre. It's slightly the right-hand side, but it's
the kiss of death
for a right-footed kicker. Shall we have a half on it?
5 minutes to go. It's the right decision.
I'm cutting down my drinking.
Definitely the right decision.
I'll go 1.5. He looks down at the ball. He looks up at the posts. 4 minutes 40 seconds. The clock directly behind those posts tell him there is to go, and he strikes it, and it's on its way.
Yes.
And that is the right-hand post.
Off the post.
And it's bouncing into the hands of Bowie, who is brought down to ground by Maroney. Under the Bristol post, Newcastle putting pressure on the Bristol Bears. Will they attack from there? They try to. Callum Sheedy is absolutely levelled by Newcastle defenders. He struck it well enough. Penalty Newcastle. Bristol hanging on.
That's always one of the best outcomes when it hits the post.
I know. Well, I tell you what, Maroney had the wherewithal to be running at full tilt to get that, and he brought Chris Bowie down. When the ball moved to Sheedy, he was levelled by 2 Newcastle defenders who were there.
It's an old adage, isn't it, that you send 2 or 3 runners up, one on each post certainly, and one just sort of backing up. If the ball does rebound off the post, you want to be first there, but Bristol overplaying, which they have been guilty of in the past, time and again, deep in their own territory when they really don't need to, with 5 minutes left on the clock.
They've got to kick this.
That should have cost them. Yeah, I'm sure they'll kick it. Yeah.
He's off again. He's away. It must be another sandwich he needs.
So
is there a doctor in the house?
I think it's my turn this time. So he is going to get this one. I'm not going to answer because I'll have to ask him after.
So what we're trying to say is it was very clever of Schumann to hit the post, wasn't it?
Absolutely. It was a really
very
hard
clever
to hit the post.
To make the second kick easier.
Accurate kick that, hit the post.
You're listening to Gallagher Premiership Rugby on the home of North East Sport, BBC Radio Newcastle and BBC 5 Live Sports Extra. Alongside me is former senior RFU coach Ian Stafford, and the man in Northumberland, Dean Gray, I'm Ian Smith, and the score at Kingston Park currently with 3.5 minutes to go. Newcastle 20, Bristol 15, but Schoeman has got the opportunity of extending Newcastle's lead by 3 points. The crowd goes absolutely pin quiet, apart from one idiot who is just laughed at. Schoeman steps forward, strikes it. That is through the middle. Newcastle get the penalty. They would have loved to try to give them the bonus point try, but a penalty will do, and that is 23-15. So Newcastle are more than one converted try ahead, Dean, with less than 3 minutes to go, and that's where they would have wanted to be.
Yeah, we know this Bristol side can perform miracles, but if Newcastle are just accurate in what they do and don't overplay, then this game should be theirs.
Ball is in the air. Callum Chick takes it beautifully.
Good take.
Chris Vui gets around there on the Newcastle side, but he's quite legal.
Use it.
And the referee is telling Sam Stewart to use it. Peterson takes the ball from his scrum half, runs into Waiting.
Tackle, release.
Bristol defenders, tackle, release, calls out referee. They didn't release, so Newcastle get another penalty.
What a great outcome.
It's roundabout round, isn't it? Newcastle were giving penalties away for fun. 2 men in the bin the first 10 minutes of the second half. And in the last 10 minutes, when Newcastle have been putting pressure on, not admittedly all in the Bristol 22, the referee has been penalising Bristol.
Yeah, well, it's pressure, isn't it? When you're defending, it's always easy to give away penalties, or far too easy to give away penalties, I should say. But that's just a daft penalty to give away, and I'm glad to see Luke Pearce blowing that, because you don't often see it. You hear a referee call tackle release 2 or 3 times before the players let go. He gave them 2 opportunities there. They didn't release. Penalty. You've not listened to me. Well done, Luke Pearce.
Well, Newcastle are going to go for the try to get that bonus point. That would really finish off a miserable night for Bristol if Newcastle can get the extra point, but Newcastle struggle to bring that ball in. They do just about bring it in.
No,
they don't, and it's knocked on by Newcastle. So McGuigan just looks askance at the referee.
I've never seen Adam Radwan so energetic and
he's animated,
animated. Yeah, absolutely. He wants the ball in his hands, but I've got to say, he hasn't had he's had precious little opportunity apart from one run in the first half, which actually naturally come to him.
Well, Newcastle have got to defend now. They don't want to get it back to a 1 point game.
Well,
they want to try and take it on further, but they're defending a scrummage which is 10 metres outside the Bristol 22, 15 metres from the right hand touchline. Sorry, Dean.
Yeah, the Bristol scrum creaked alarmingly last time round though, Smithy, so not a bad outcome, and the clock is ticking as well. So
yeah, minute 5 seconds, and they're bringing more beer. So it wasn't worms, it was alcohol.
Yeah.
And he's right in front of me, but he's ducked down. That's good.
Does that give you worms alcohol? I don't know.
Give you stomach. And that ball is at the base. Picked by Harry Randall, moved on to Bedlow. Bedlow tries to break through. Fed back to Randall, who dances off his left foot 2 or 3 times. It's moved on. Bristol getting up to the 10 metre line. Newcastle's defence is strong. Bristol move the ball back to the midfield area. That's Dan Thomas. It's bouncing around. And that is knocked on by Bristol. Newcastle have got the advantage into the hands of Carreras. Can he get round that Bristol defence? Tackled wide out on the left hand side of the field. Is the referee playing advantage still? Probably not. His arm isn't out. Advantage over, he's just said. Newcastle pick up and drive again. Ball is on the floor. And Sam Stewart is getting to the contact area. The clock is down to 15 seconds. Will Welsh just stands and rolls into the contact.
I don't think Adam Radwan's going to get it, no matter how much he waves.
Sam Stewart, ball in hand, moves it on to Callum Chick. Chicky just breaks that first line of defence. Penalty coming against the Bristol Bears. Adam Radwan desperate for the ball over here, but Sam Stewart takes it the opposite way, and McGuigan just takes the penalty. The clock is down to 0. Newcastle can kick it off if they want, or they're going to go for that try. They're going to go for the try, aren't they?
Fourth try, they're putting the corner, Smithy.
Well, Radwan might have his chance if they win the line out and move the ball wide to this right hand side.
I think it's more likely George McGuigan will have his chance, to be brutally honest. I can't see the forward.
That is a good kick.
What a lovely kick.
That is a good
by
kick.
Ian Schoeman, who's put Newcastle, well, maybe not 5 metres from the Bristol try line, but certainly 7 or 8 metres. Radwan's running across the field just to make sure that the noise there.
No, I think he's going to join the pack, to be quite honest.
I noticed that Schoeman hasn't missed one kick to touch today.
He did the first half, he missed one.
He did miss
He
one.
missed one in the first half, but apart from that he's been fine.
Because that's how he knackered his knee, wasn't it?
Was it? I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know. McGuigan feeding this line out, taken by Sean Robinson. Newcastle group around the big man. The backs are allowed to join. Callum Chick joins on. Newcastle still in control of the football. The clock is down to 0. McGuigan back. Orlando gives a little dummy, takes the contact in front of the post. Will it come this way now? Radwan desperately wants this ball. It's into the hands of Callum Chick again. Bounces off the first Bristol defender. They are now 10 metres from the line. It's moving across into territory That Maroney trying to get that ball out to Adam Radwan. He's there now. Can he get the ball in hand? McGuigan ducks his shoulder into the contact. Radwan adds himself to that contact. On to Blumeyer, spins there 5 metres. Vui lifts his leg, referee's happy. Ball moved across. It's Callum Chick again who runs into number 23, Sam Bedlow. Newcastle. Chip over the top. Where's it going to bounce? On the crossbar. Into a Bristol hand. Mark is called.
Oh, clever.
Let him go, let him go.
Let him go, he's been told. Bristol are running it from their own try line. Ball moved on from Sheedy. It's wide out on the right hand side. Is that Rich Lane that's brought down to ground? Or it might be Morahan, who's as far away from us as you can possibly get. Newcastle aren't offside. I thought Newcastle had been offside there, but the referee is absolutely on the spot. Now he's given the offside. Why didn't he give it straight away?
I thought it was obvious that Falcons had gone offside.
Must have been playing advantage, I guess, but that just took an awful long time.
Didn't signal.
And Bristol tried to get that ball off the field, and they do, but the line out is still going to be coming. That line out has been set. 15 metres outside Newcastle's 22. Newcastle have won the game. It's 23-15 unless something absolutely extraordinary happens.
They've lost.
It's going to be Newcastle's game, but they've lost the opportunity of getting the bonus point for the 4 tries.
I think something should be said about that kick. I mean, totally the wrong decision at that time of the game to let the ball go, because anything could happen. I mean, it came off the bar, the crossbar. He marked it. He ran. You know, anything could. I know they're just going to win the game, but still. You need to play keep ball, don't you?
And Lucock, I think, has just come on for Matthias Orlando, is he, Smithy?
Okay, all right, he's on the field yet, and that is in by Capon. It's taken down by, I think that was Jake Heenan at the back of the line. And that is replacement Sam Bedlow, rams into Newcastle defenders. The ball is on the floor. Newcastle have nicked it. Newcastle have got it. And Blumeyer is getting in to get hands on it. And the scribblers at our left-hand side are getting a bit excited. Into the hands of Carreras. And he's off. He's away past the defender. Can he get past the last man? Steps inside, outside, into 22 for the corner. Try! Matthias Carreras, what a way
to
end the game at Kingston Park.
Wow.
He has got some wheels.
Wow, has he not? We didn't really see it last season, but we've certainly seen it. That young man is lightning quick, and that is a fantastic finish. And I think, again, that'll be a contender for try of the season.
That is,
individual score.
That is an old-fashioned winger's try, isn't it? He took him in and out, and and it wasn't just the speed; it was the footwork at speed.
Not a sidestep, just a swerve of there.
Yeah, but some wingers, I remember Jason Robinson would just shift his hips, and that's one thing. But he turned his whole body. The winger didn't have any opportunity but to follow him. And when he gassed him on the outside, he wasn't anywhere near him.
It's the acceleration, isn't it? It's just light. He's very quick over the ground.
Morahan was left foot dead there.
Put him on his heels, didn't he? Put Morahan on his heels.
Yeah,
absolutely. What a try!
What a brilliant game of
rugby.
What
a try for the bonus point for Newcastle. Sorry if we sound excited and you're not of a Newcastle persuasion, but tell me, we've had some rubbish to look at over the years. And seeing tries like that just warms your heart.
It does indeed.
And I'm looking forward to that humble pie I'm going to be eating after the match.
You know, we said,
just get the loggers in, that'll be fine. That'll do.
I was going to say it's Radwan-esque.
Schoeman has got the ball on the tee. He's hugging the left-hand touchline, 2 metres outside the 22. We've got a 28-15 game at the moment. He's concentrating. The crowd has gone quiet. If anybody left early, they'd be feeling sorry for themselves. He strikes that. It's on its way. It's on its way. It's on its way. It's through the middle. It's through the middle. What a way to end this Gallagher Premiership game at Kingston Park, a week which has had so much turmoil for the game down at Worcester and at Wasp, but here at Kingston Park Newcastle have come out on top, 30 points to 15. I'm going to start with you and your humble pie stuff. Could you have seen that coming at all?
Not at all. I mean, when you said before the match, when you looked at the team that Bristol had put out, you thought you quite fancied Newcastle. I actually thought, I know they've got 3 terrific players who they've had in previous seasons who haven't started and who aren't even on the bench, but I still thought 3 from 3, that'll be good enough, especially given Newcastle's start to the season, which has been terrible to say the least. But having said that, they have played Leicester and Quins, two of the best. So it was totally unexpected, but one of the best Newcastle performances I think I've seen in relation to the team that they were playing against. That was a terrific performance.
And no matter what team Bristol put out, Dean, whatever team Bristol put out, they're going to be a big challenge for Newcastle, and Newcastle stood up to that period when they went down to 13 men. We've said this a couple of times this season already. In previous times, they would have capitulated there.
They would have done. Absolutely right, Smithy. Yeah, they played pretty well. Any side, if you go down to 13, finds it really tough. To concede 2 tries like they did was probably as good as they could hope for. Missing 2 men in the field, especially with the way that Bristol play, which does find space and gaps. Bristol, stripped of 2 or 3 of the marquee players, as we alluded to, but still very, very strong. And we have to bear in mind they're unbeaten this season till tonight. They came as top of the table, playing bottom of the table. Falcons being really sort of manful in the first 2 performances of the season, coming away with 1 point and then getting absolutely walloped in the second 40 down at Worcester, who captured the emotion ever so well. I think that's a terrific Falcons performance, and one of the best I've seen in the last 3 or 4 years.
They've got to take... It never gets any easier in the Premiership. I say this every week, the team next so good, they've got to play them. But it's Sarries at home, and that's always going to be difficult, obviously. But that's got to give them confidence going into the game against Sarries. Against Quins, they had an opportunity right at the death to win it. Against Leicester at Welford Road, they got behind twice but got themselves ahead again.
Yep.
That performance today is like the cherry on the top of those 2 good performances that could give them confidence next weekend.
Absolutely.
Go on, Staffs, yeah. And they've just got to realise they are actually good with ball in hand. And if the more they go through the phases, the more confident they become with those 2 centres, and with Carreras, who was obviously the best of the 3 tenors tonight, on the wing, absolutely sparkling. And we hardly saw Adam Radwan apart from his couple of runs in the first half. I mean, I bet he was playing on the left wing.
But that'll come though, won't it? When the 2 centres get themselves more ground into what they're doing, Radwan will start getting ball like Carreras was. The natural passing hand with players that aren't in the system is to the left, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Right-handed players will generally pass better to the left. These professional rugby players, there is a slight difference still, but the flow of the play generally goes that way. Right-footed kickers as well. What was impressive about Adam Radwan, we've seen him before coming off the wing looking for work, and he's not that sort of player when he runs into heavy traffic. He stayed out wide tonight, which I think was probably the right thing to do, waiting for the ball. It just didn't come to him. The ball came to Carreras more often than Radwan. He had very few opportunities to run with it, but just terrific Falcons performance.
Very quick answers, boys. That was the first Gallagher Premiership game of the weekend. Tomorrow afternoon, all 3 o'clock kickoffs. Gloucester, Worcester, where's your money?
Gloucester.
The next game, sorry. I was wanting him to say something.
I know.
London Irish, Bath.
Irish.
Sale Sharks, Exeter, Chiefs.
Exeter.
I don't know. Sale have been playing really well. Sale, I think,
Sale at home.
And Sarries, Leicester Tigers.
Oh, just a blood
fight. And on Sunday afternoon, 3 o'clock kick-off again. It's Harlequins against Saints. That's got to be Quins, hasn't it?
Yeah, I would have thought so. I'll just change my opinion on that the Saracens-Leicester game. I hope they both lose.
Oh well, that might happen. In English National League 1, 3 o'clock kick-off. The Rams welcome Darlington Mowden Park. And Mowden Park 6th in the table, Rams are 4th. That's going to be a close game. In English National League 2 North, Fylde welcome Bladen. Fylde are top, Bladen are 14th, so that's going to be a difficult afternoon for the men from Crowtrees. But Tynedale up the Tyne Valley, welcome Otley. Tynedale 6th, and Otley are 9th of a league of 14, so that's going to be an interesting afternoon up at Corbridge. And I'm just looking back through my notes for women's rugby. Women's World Cup starts on October the 8th. That's before our next game.